My entitled ex tried to use the legal system against me by literally lying and trying to ruin my career. So I pulled the wild Uno reverse card out of my pocket and used it all against him, as I took him to court and exposed him for the narcissist that he truly was, resulting in him losing his job, losing his credibility, and eventually losing all of his money, as he now lives with his mom and has literally no prospects in his life. And I honestly couldn't be more satisfied because this guy really deserved it. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, the only show where you can see that karma is a cruel mistress and she loves to strike exactly at the right time. Because my god, the revenge the original poster gets in this story is delicious. It is absolutely wonderful, so strap in for this one. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, and let's get started. Okay, I want to say that in my mind, this isn't really petty, but it is definitely revenge. To put it bluntly, I was in a relationship with a narcissist. Not in the way we casually throw the word around, but a true personality disorder. I didn't know this at first because the idealization phase is so convincing, but once that phase ended, the relationship became challenging. There were lies, volatility, suspected infidelity, so eventually I just ended it. Well, over 2 weeks, he begged and pleaded for a second chance. There were apology cards left on my car, long texts about learning his lesson, tearful voicemails, etc. But eventually I was convinced and I did end up giving him a second chance. Now, I've got to say, things were better at first, but eventually it was right back to the same issues. So I gave him an ultimatum, including personal therapy and access to his phone right there on the spot. He said yes to everything until I finally got to the phone. So of course my spider senses started tingling because I found things in his phone before that were suspicious but explained away. Eventually he gave me his phone, after trying to covertly delete conversations, and I just left him in my apartment so I could go through every single pixel. And you know what? I found everything. I went back to the beginning of our relationship and I saw text messages, direct messages, Snapchats, dating apps that proved he definitely had been cheating the entire time, including with one of his patients as he works as a physical therapist. When I returned home to confront him, he literally exploded and actually grabbed me and put his arm around my neck to get the phone back. Now, I wasn't hurt, but I definitely was rattled. Eventually, I got him out of the house and I knew for a fact I would never talk to him again or see him again. Well, that would be the case until I got a subpoena ordering me to a protective order hearing. This psycho really told the judge that I stole his phone and attacked him when he was the one who attacked me. But guess what? It worked. He literally got the protective order. Then he took out an assault charge against me, which by the way is a conviction that would have ended my career, which was very lucrative and hard earned. So you know what? I fought back. Leading up to this, I had been secretly recording our fights to make sense of everything because he was an expert gaslighter. I had taken pictures of the aftermath of the fight over his phone, and I had also sent screenshots of the conversation with his patients from his phone over to mine. So I made a binder of evidence and took out 13 charges, including 2 felonies. I got a temporary restraining order and a hearing to make it all permanent. And I even sent the screenshots of his conversations with his patient over to his licensing board and his job. We had a long legal battle. He was investigated by his board and lost his license. Then he lost his job. And when he and his lawyer realized I had recordings showing who the screaming, verbally awful antagonist really was, he paid the over $10,000 attorney fees for the both of us, while also dropping the charges and the protective orders. But then after that, I took him to civil court for $12,500 for property damage, and yeah, you better believe I won. He sent threatening text messages because of that, so I took out an additional charge, and he was convicted again. And it was here that I was given a 2-year protective order. So now he's jobless, he's broke, he lives with his mom, and is on probation. And honestly, I can't think of a better person for this to happen to. Dude, I love this story so much. You got this guy exactly where it counts. You took him to court and you exposed him, and I love the fact that he lost. Like, this is the kind of stuff you like to see. Like, this is very cathartic. So good for you. I'm super glad this worked out, and I'm glad your ex got exactly what he deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. My girlfriend wants to move in with me, but I literally cannot stand her dog. And at this point, I don't know how to break it to her that I don't want her dog in her house, and I really just don't know what to do. Here's some context just to try and illustrate the situation. Okay, so my girlfriend and I have been together long distance for about 2 years now. I'm finishing up school and about to move out and find a place on my own, and hopefully she can move in too. I don't mind the idea of living with her, however, but I simply cannot stand her dog. Her dog is a 7-year-old Pomsky. The thing is literally a rat, and she has given given that dog everything. She'll give it treats whenever and just letting it walk all over her, and the dog has trained her to give her treats whenever she yells or barks. It will literally not stop screaming for hours. It knows that it will get its way and get all these stupid treats. The dog also has developed spite and will quite literally take a crap or pee in the house whenever you leave it alone and not give it attention. For example, I woke up and fed the dog immediately, and while it was eating, I went to the bathroom real quick, and I come back not even 30 seconds later where it literally goes to the bathroom on the ground with the food still in the bowl. So I quickly took it out right after and went back into the house. Then I went back to the bathroom to brush my teeth, and guess what? There was more dog urine on the ground, and it starts yelling at me. It would not be quiet until it got more treats. My girlfriend will give the dog handfuls of Cheerios whenever she wants it to be quiet, but also kenneling the dog will only make it louder. Don't get me wrong, the dog is sweet, but I cannot do the screaming and the dog peeing in the house every day. So how can I talk to her about this? Because honestly, I don't want to live with her dog, let alone visit for a few days at a time. What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, it definitely sounds like you guys are not ready to live together. This sounds like it would be a nightmare waiting to happen, and I know for a fact I would go crazy. So if I was in your shoes, I would definitely address this as soon as possible, because this would drive me crazy within a week. Imagine living with that all the time, because if your girlfriend's giving into whatever the dog wants, you better believe you're going to do the same just to try and keep the peace, which is a nightmare waiting to happen. Today, I found out that my boyfriend is once again cheating on me, and now I'm trying to figure out what to do because I can't physically move out yet until I pay off a loan I'm currently working through, as this really has kind of put me in a spot where I have to live with him while also figuring my life out, and at this point, I don't know how to do that. Here's what's going on. Okay, to put it bluntly, I found out last year that my husband was cheating. I found messages on Discord from a girl he was playing a game with, which is ironically the one we had met on, and I just decided to give him another chance. Since last year, I had a feeling that he didn't quit playing the game, and more recently that he didn't actually cut her off like I thought he did. And guess what? I was completely right. I haven't found 100% proof on this, but just from following her, and yeah, I know I'm kind of stalking her online, as well as following his activity, as well as the way whenever I move at night, he jumps around and goes to grab his phone, I think it is pretty obvious that something is still going on. But unfortunately, I'm not in a spot where I can leave him yet. I have a loan to pay off, and once it's paid off, I can finally afford to do so, but until then, I'm kind of stuck. So how do I act like everything's fine? Unless I outright catch him, he will never admit to me that he's cheating, and I'm fairly certain he would delete everything off his phone before giving it to me. Either way, I can't really do anything about this until I have my loan paid off. But how do I sleep next to him acting like everything's fine? How do I look at him? How do I sleep with him? He absolutely disgusts me, and I always knew I could do better, but love and all that garbage kind of clouded my judgment. And I just want to say, I'm not going to be replying to anyone who says, oh, just leave him, because I literally cannot. If I move in with parents, I'll lose my job, and I have to take a huge pay cut, which will completely screw me over. I have a good job. I just consolidated debt and put it on a fast track to be paid off. I just need to be able to get through the next year and a half. When I caught him last time, I said if I caught him again, I would assume that we were in an open relationship and I would find my own side piece, but I just am not like him. I can't just simply do that. What should I do? Okay, if moving's off the table and going in with family's off the table, then dude, I would live there as little as possible. I would work a side job on the weekends, I would take extra hours at work, I would do whatever was possible to make money, pay off my debt as soon as possible, and get out of there as soon as I possibly could. That is honestly what I would do, and if he has any question about it, I would just be like, yeah, I'm just saving up, I'm trying to pay off my loan. Also, you don't owe him anything physically, if you know what I mean. You don't have to do anything with him, you really don't. So hopefully that part of this can be taken off the table almost immediately. But when it comes to being around him, honestly, if I was in this kind of scenario, I would just tough it out as much as I can, spend as little time at home as I possibly can, and just maximize my time into making money. Because it seems like that might be the only way out of this, and that really sucks, and I really hope you're able to find a solution sooner than later. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to tell his mother that she is no longer allowed in our house unsupervised after she literally stole from us the last time we were here? Here's what's currently going on, and yes, it is as crazy as it sounds. Okay, so my mother-in-law has a long history of crossing boundaries in my home. Some examples include opening mail and packages when I'm not there, rearranging my garage without asking, and moving around my makeup, my skincare, and my kitchen items while she's visiting. She usually does these things when I'm not home too, by the way. And for context, this is not something my own parents do, and we've never set an expectation that family members can just do whatever they want in our house. Well, last Christmas, my husband gave her money to take our 2 young sons shopping so that they could pick out some gifts for us. She helped my youngest son choose a dish drying rack and drying mat for me, so while she was involved in picking it out, it was paid for with my husband's money and then given to me as a gift for my son. And just for comparison, the actual gift she personally gave me was an old bag of potpourri and chapstick. Recently, she was at our house watching the kids while I was at work and my husband was out. When I got home, I noticed things in the pantry had been moved around. Then I realized the dish drying rack and mat was gone. I had seen it earlier that day, so I knew it had been there. I asked my kids and my husband if they moved it, and no one knew anything about it. And at that point, I strongly suspected my mother-in-law because she has taken gifts back from people before. My husband then texted her and asked her, "Hey, did you take it?" And she admitted, "Yes, I did. You guys don't use it enough." And so because of that, she just took it with her. And I gotta be honest, I was shocked and angry. To me, this is stealing something from my house because she decided I didn't deserve to keep my own property. My husband thinks I should just let it go and sweep it under the rug, but I told him this is a serious boundary issue, and I seriously don't trust her in our home anymore. I then requested that she no longer be alone in our home unsupervised, but my husband thinks that what she did wasn't stealing, and that apparently I'm making a big deal over nothing. So seriously, I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I really the jerk here? Because I don't know what else to do here. Okay, no, you are not the jerk, and your husband is a spineless coward. Dude, she stole your property. I don't care what it is. She took it away because she's like, oh, you don't use it enough, so you don't deserve it. But it's like, bro, if I want to staple that drying rack to my roof, then guess what? I can do that because it's mine. I could do whatever I want with it. But just because you think, oh, you don't use it enough, you don't deserve it, like that doesn't give you the right to take it from my home. Like, what are you doing? Get out of my house, bro. Like, what's happening right now? So if this was me, dude, she is never welcome back. She can take a hike and figure her life out, but she's never coming back to my place. In fact, not only would she never be allowed back, but I would make a point of being like, you got to bring back my property today. I don't care what you think about whether I use something enough. This literally is not the point. You stole my property. You can either bring it back or I'm going to make this into a bigger deal, because this kind of behavior needs to stop. And the only way to make that happen, in my opinion, is by calling them out exactly when it happens and not just brush it under the rug like your husband's trying to do. My deadbeat mom walked out on me and my siblings, but now after all these years, she's finally demanding to move back in, saying that as our mom, she deserves to live with us. But now we're seriously considering getting the police involved because we do not want that woman in our house. And at this point, we don't really know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my mom basically is wanting to move back in with me and my siblings. I'll try to keep it short, but basically she and my stepdad got divorced in November of 2020 because he caught her texting another guy. It was really messy to say the least, and he ended up leaving that same night, and we didn't hear from him for like a few months, which I really don't blame him for since he was going through a lot. Like, my mom literally betrayed him, and he needed some time to process things, but he is still very much supportive and takes care of us kids. Now, I say stepdad just for the story, but I do take him as my true dad. My biological dad wasn't in the picture much at all. Meanwhile, my stepdad took me in as his own when I was a baby, so he's really my dad. And this is really relevant because I feel like some people might think I don't have a close relationship with him, but I really do. He is the best and I love him, and he treats me like his own. Well, after that, she left and moved in with another guy and has left us 4 siblings at home without any parental supervision, and has been like that pretty much ever since. She was really horrible to us kids since she moved in with the guy and treated us like we were a burden, sometimes acting like we didn't exist while she still played mommy to her younger kids. So me and my older sibling had to step up and take care of all of us. When she left, all she said was, "There's more than enough for you to rely on each other," and also claiming that we'll understand it when we're older and have kids of our own. But personally, I wouldn't abandon my kids for a guy that's gonna mistreat me, but hey, that's just me, I guess. She would come back sometimes, but it was only for like a day or two to come and get clothing, or she would only come back if they got into a fight, and then she would leave right back for him, who lives like 3 or 4 hours away. We then got into a huge argument a few months ago when she and this deadbeat guy broke up, and he kicked her out for like the billionth time, and she tried to guilt trip us by saying kids need their moms and all that other crap. But I told her something along the lines of, well, when did you care about this 5 years ago when you left us claiming we would understand when we were older? We're older now and we still don't understand how a woman can do that to her kids. After that, she got mad, and that's where the argument really started. She said some not so nice things about me and my siblings that I won't repeat here, but just know it's some things that a mother should really never say to her kids. It ended with her going and staying at our grandparents' house, and then texting my older sibling and I and guilt tripping us and playing the victim victim so much that my grandparents told us to just straight up block her. But hey, spoiler alert, she went right back to him a few days later. Well, after this fiasco, my older sibling took her to court for custody of our younger siblings and the house, and just straight up told her that if she didn't hand over the kids or the house in their name peacefully, then they would out her in court and tell them exactly what she's been doing. And sure, blackmail isn't right, I know, but guess what? It definitely worked. My mom gave the house and the kids to my older sibling and claimed to be an unfit parent, and that was it. But now she and the guy broke up and they are apparently done for good, as he's basically thrown out all of her things. She also got a new number and called my older sibling asking if she could have her room back in the house, as she claimed she would never leave us again. But we've already turned her room into the youngest room and she likes her space, so obviously we told her no. But this is when she started playing the victim card and tried turning it around on us, saying that we're mean and that she's done everything for us kids, and that our dad apparently turned us against her. But we told her that our dad doesn't even talk about her anymore unless we bring her up in the first place, and then she started getting mad saying, oh, we're such ungrateful brats. And then again, she reiterated that we should be thanking her for even giving us the house and not throwing us out like she wanted to do. She then proceeded to demand that we let her move in and that she wasn't taking no for an answer, that she was the one that raised us, and that she is still the mom and has final say. But we straight up told her that if she tries anything, we would get the police involved. But so far, that hasn't really stopped her. She's going to try and move in sometime today or tomorrow because all she said was, well, we'll talk about this in person. See you soon, love you. And honestly, I don't even know what to do about this if she does try something. I really hope she doesn't go through with it so we don't have to get the police involved, but so far, that really looks like exactly where it's going, and honestly, I don't know what to do about this. Okay, this is some heavy stuff. First off, I am so sorry to the original poster and their family. Seriously, your mom sucks. She is a terrible parent. She's stepping in here trying to be like, oh yeah, I've done everything for you. And yet she's the one that literally walked out on the entire family. She cheated on your dad, and then she's like, wow, you need to let me move back in. No, I haven't been involved for a few years. What's the big deal? You guys aren't being ungrateful brats. You're literally just looking out for each other. You're trying to keep the peace and have some kind of stability for your younger siblings. So her coming in and disrupting that is so unacceptable. So yeah, hopefully she doesn't try to move in, and hopefully you get the police involved. And obviously if you haven't changed the locks already and put up a camera, I would definitely do that as soon as possible, because her behavior is weird and I can definitely see her trying something when you're least expecting it. Am I the jerk for not putting down some money to help pay for a coworker's birthday gift, as I really dislike this coworker and I want nothing to do with them? Here's what happened. Okay, so there's a guy I will call Kevin at work that I really dislike. I should clarify that I run IT at a help desk and I'm extremely protective of my people. Meanwhile, Kevin is not in the IT department, but works on the same floor as us. He's also a bully, but the kind who thinks being sarcastic isn't bullying. For example, one of my team members had to do a presentation on some new security features, and Kevin kept interrupting him and snorting as if my guy didn't know what he was doing. But after the third time of this happening, I turned to Kevin and I said to him, okay, well, it seems like you know more about this software than my guy does, so maybe you should take over the presentation. And when I said that, he backed down and was quiet after that. I remember my team lead, who had sat in on the meeting, kind of resignedly shook his head, and I just shrugged and let my guy continue. Another time, one of my guys went to check Kevin's computer, and I could hear Kevin raising his voice at him. I went to his office, and without knocking, I walked in, and I asked what seems to be the problem. Well, it turned out, in trying to help Kevin, my guy had accidentally deleted an important document Kevin had been working on for quite some time. I stood silently just staring at Kevin for a few seconds, and I know for a fact how it made him feel really uncomfortable. My friends and students always tell me that I have a policeman stare when I'm not in the mood for nonsense. I then took over, found the temporary copy, and I restored the document. When leaving, I turned and I smiled at him, and I said, see how easy that was? And we didn't need to shout in the process. Amazing, right? He then got the message because he never did that ever again. Now, I should mention, I don't create tension with Kevin, and I'm always very polite and professional to him when he needs something. I'm just not his water cooler buddy, and I don't want to be. Now, on to the issue at hand. One of the girls on my team told me that Kevin's birthday was coming up, and they asked me if I wanted to contribute to the pot to get him a gift. But yeah, as you can imagine, I said no. When she asked why, I just bowed my head and lifted my eyebrows, and I stared at her like, are you serious? Really? Well, when I did that, she laughed and said the team figured I wouldn't, as they knew I don't really like Kevin. But they sent her anyways to ask just in case. Now, I remember I said, you all obviously have too much time on your hands, to which she laughed at that and then she left. She then later brought by the birthday card and asked me, okay, at least sign explain it, to which I went ahead and just did that. Well, later, my team lead found out and told me it wouldn't have hurt to put like $5 in as a gift. I then told him that I'm sorry, but I am not that person who smiles at people that they dislike and then rewards them later on. When I said this, he just shook his head, and I remember that he said, "Look, you just gotta learn to play the game." Now, I think I play the game very well because I started on a phone answering help calls, and now I run the help desk, and I have a great relationship with everyone all the way up to the CEO, who insists on me calling him by his first name, but I always stay professional and refer to his last name, and this always makes him laugh. So I'm literally on good, if not fantastic terms with everybody except for Kevin. My problem is I just can't find it in me to reward bullies and terrible people and just stand by doing nothing and smiling as if nothing's wrong. So am I really the jerk here? Like, am I in the wrong for not giving money for this idiot? Because I really just don't know if I made a mistake or not. No, you're not the jerk. Screw Kevin. We hate Kevin in this house. People like Kevin are the reason why people like the rest of us, who are all reasonable people and not the jerk, literally have to take medicine at the end of a workday because we're so sick of Kevin. Kevin makes our life miserable. We hate dealing with him. So no, you're not obligated to help pay for his birthday gift. And I think you signing the birthday card at least was the bare minimum that should have been expected. My toxic entitled friend starts spreading false rumors about me in a way that is seriously damaging to my reputation. So I decide to get some revenge by quite literally ruining their lives in a way that they truly will never recover from. Here's what happened. So me and one of my best friends have been friends for nearly a decade. For reference, I'm a 22-year-old male and he's a 21-year-old male. We both share the same group of friends at a venue we both attended, but most of them were closer to him and had known him for longer than they had known me. We had, prior to this revenge, had a disagreement with him claiming I had lied about something, which he wouldn't even tell me about, as well as me calling him out for being constantly hours late whenever I arranged to spend time with him, and me finding out that he was leaving me out of group hangouts secretly. Now, I found out that after our argument, he went around the venue spreading rumors, and mind you, he could not find a scrap of evidence of anything. So I asked the staff of the venue that we attended to ask him to stop, but forgetting they were close friends of his, they made up excuses which they refused to tell me and banned me from the venue. And it was at this moment that my revenge began. First, I got in contact with a lawyer who drafted and sent him a cease and desist notice. He initially responded to accuse me of faking the letter, but was then sent a signed email copy and asked by the lawyer to advise to his position, at which point he left my lawyer on read. And it was on the next day that I found out he was still spreading rumors. So, unknown to him at the time, I took screenshots of years worth of text messages and was given the phone number for the Department of Fraud. As it turns out, I had collected information about him taking study assistant payments for an entire year while not attending class. This alone could mean that he has to pay back $10,000+ on top of a substantial fine as well as possible prison time. Secondly, I had text messages from him using, if you know what I mean, and distributing said illegal substance from the house that he rents with a few former friends. So I, of course, sent these to the police and had a long phone conversation with them about his substance use. Luckily for me, using some of my connections, I found the address and contact information of his landlord, and I'm arranging to send a detailed letter with all of the evidence in tow. Third, I had text messages of him admitting to drinking and driving, and he is now being watched by the police on weekends when he goes out, because on top of the drunk driving, he has lost his license prior due to speeding and causing an accident. Now, to add to my revenge against him, I felt the need to take revenge on the venue manager who ignored the harassment against me and instead kicked me out to spare his friend's punishment. So I found 5 people willing to testify that this manager uses the venue to buy and sell illegal substances, has told people to drink and drive in order to get more sales, as well as spiking sober people's drinks with alcohol. On top of recording 5 statements from different people and sending them to the police, I also filed a liquor complaint form and sent that to the appropriate authorities. Now, to add to this even further, I found out who lied on my former friend's behalf to get me removed and who was spreading rumors about me, and then I found screenshots and people willing to testify against them about the substance dealing and various other incidents. And now it's just a waiting game. And for those of you who think that I may have gone too far by getting him in trouble with the government for fraud or even the police for substances, I sent him a personal letter with a lawyer's statement saying that I would not proceed with charges of any kind should he apologize and tell the venue staff he lied in order to get me removed. But since he left me on red, I see that as a warning ignored, which really justifies why I'm choosing to take this route. Wow, I love this story because you know what? These people were playing with fire from the beginning. Seriously, these guys were not good people in the slightest, and they very clearly pissed off the wrong person. Like, what in the world was going on at that venue? First of all, I would never go there again if that really is what's going on there. Like, that sounds like a sketchy place and not a good thing in the slightest. So to me, I think the fact that you're reporting all these people, in my opinion, honestly is not a bad idea, because these people were very clearly bad-mouthing you in a way that was damaging to your reputation, and I truly think that you have every right to defend that no matter what. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend overheard a comment made by my mom that he literally did not like, and now, as a result, he is refusing to talk to me about it and is even going as far as saying that we're done. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, long story short, I was on my phone with my boyfriend and was going out to grab some dinner. My mom made a comment saying, "Hey, I know you have a boyfriend, but is there any cute guys in your classes?" And when I heard this, I was honestly so caught off guard by this question. Another family member was in the room, so I knew it was a question more so coming from them because they didn't know yet how serious my relationship was. And so I responded with, "Of course not." For some backstory, my boyfriend got cheated on a lot in the past, so he has very bad trust issues and gets really insecure that I'm going to be talking to other guys and all this other stuff. After my mom made this comment, I immediately knew he was gonna be mad. He went on pause on the class and literally refused to talk to me. For 20 minutes, I was begging him to say something, but he simply wouldn't. He finally said something when I was trying to get him to explain what he was feeling, and he thinks that since my mom made this comment, then I must have been talking to her about the topic before, which I definitely had not. I love my boyfriend, and with knowing how much he has a hard time trusting, I never want to make any comments to make him think that I want anyone else because I only want him. Well, he literally wouldn't talk to me and ended up going to sleep angry, and now I'm so overly stressed out and I can't sleep. I understand where he's coming from, but I also think that I don't deserve to be treated with disrespect over a comment that I didn't even make. Literally, the last thing he said to me before he fell asleep was him saying, "We're done." He is also bipolar, and so sometimes in arguments, he says things like this that he doesn't mean. Usually, once he's good again, he tells me that he doesn't actually want to break up with me and that he just gets in his head. But this time it's just different, because usually I force him to talk about his feelings and resolve them immediately, but this time with him just going to bed without talking about it, I'm stressing out a lot and scared that he's actually going to want to be done. Fast forward and it's the next day, and he still has not barely talked to me, and now he's at work, so I don't have any updates so far. So right now I'm honestly very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I think your boyfriend is being super immature. He is literally breaking up with you over a comment that your mom made, which you obviously don't reciprocate, and instead of talking to you about it, he's deciding to take the immature route and give you the cold shoulder, which by the way is incredibly toxic. There's never a good reason to do that, and that only makes things worse. And in my opinion, it kind of seems like he's wanting you to beg for forgiveness, as if you're the one that did anything wrong when in reality no one did anything. Like, does this guy even want to be in a relationship? It doesn't sound like he should be in one in the first place, especially if this is how he handles conflict, which by the way is not normal. That is like super toxic behavior and you don't deserve that. So I can only speak for myself, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would take him seriously when he says that we're done. I would pack it up and say, okay, I guess we're over, and I would force him to come to the table and figure this out. Because anybody who uses that as some kind of excuse just to punish their partner, in my opinion, does not deserve to have a partner, because that is absolutely unfair. My husband keeps interrupting me and answering questions for me in front of our friends, and it's now gotten to a point where I am seriously so frustrated because I really don't think there's any solution to this problem. Here's what happened. Okay, when I have a gathering with common friends that are married, my husband usually interrupts me when my friends are asking about my adventure or my life in general. My husband doesn't really do any sports, and he does not have many activities or interests other than watching cooking shows and a couple of other shows on YouTube. He does not have a lot of common interests with men. He likes to mingle with women because he likes to cook. The problem is, when my girlfriends or friends are asking me about my adventures or even just my regular life, my husband will interrupt me answering and talks about my adventure, which he did not participate in, and about my life in front of me. For example, I love climbing, and I finally completed some big goal climbs. I was mingling in a party, and a friend asked me how my climb was. My husband, who does not climb or exercise, answers for me and said that the climb is easy. My friend even said to him in surprise that he thought my husband does not climb, and my husband just confidently says yes, and then continues talking without even realizing that it might be a hint. I then just leave the conversation. I mean, not only did he interrupt, but he also undermined my big goal and training for the past 2 to 3 years. This also extends about my regular daily life, stuff like kids' activities, restaurants that I tried, etc. For instance, my girlfriend will visit me and ask me about what I do for cooking, and my husband interrupts me and says that I don't go to the kitchen. I cook breakfast for my kids every day. I just don't cook for him because no matter what, he only eats what he cooks. I mean, he is very picky after all. I told my husband about this multiple times, and he says sorry, but he keeps repeating this. From my experience, my husband will never change, and instead, it's me who always needs to change. Also, he's not very self-aware at all. I told him to find more hobbies so he can relate and talk with more people, but according to him, he has a lot of hobbies. I don't tell him that it is related to this issue because then he will get defensive. If I gave him like an eye or hand signal, he literally just won't notice or understand. I mean, there are other things when I literally told him on the moment, please do not do this, and then he will still do it. And then later on, he will say that he misheard or misunderstood. I cannot come up with any solution other than I should just avoid going to parties with common friends with him. But what is the point of going to a party if I'm going to be hurt or pissed off afterwards? I am thinking I can try to tell him that we rotate if there is a friend gathering, but I'm just not sure what to tell my friends in the meantime. What should I do? Wow, your husband sounds incredibly annoying. The fact that he's interrupting you and like always talking over you and never letting you talk, like that would be super frustrating for me. I despise when people do this, especially about subjects they know nothing about. Like that's the part that would drive me up a wall. So hopefully some kind of solution can come about because of this, because this is really unfair for you, as your husband, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. My idiotic job demands that I wear my work uniform at all times, causing me to literally pass out from heat stroke, resulting in me going to the hospital for 2 days. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago, and I no longer work with this company because this story isn't even the first time where I thought my personal health and safety was taking the backseat to the requirements of this company. I work for a security company, and my assignment was the vehicle depot lot for the gas company. My duties were to sit in this aluminum trailer shack in the corner of the lot and monitor for suspicious activity. In Philadelphia, many of these areas were targeted by catalytic converter thieves. I was also supposed to make a patrol every hour to ensure the security of the site. Now, other than my patrols and to use the bathroom, I was not permitted to leave the box for any reason. My uniform was my usual long-sleeve button-up shirt and long pants, but also I was required to wear a boiler suit and hard hat for safety from things I might encounter on my patrols. Originally, I only wore my boiler suit and hard hat to do my patrols because it was July and the air conditioner in the box didn't work. However, my site supervisor came for inspection and threatened to fire me if I wouldn't wear the boiler suit and hard hat while sitting in the box as well. So I did just that. The end of July and beginning of August in 2022 was one of the worst heat waves in Philadelphia's history. On a good day, it was 140 degrees Fahrenheit plus inside the box itself, as it was made of aluminum and sitting in direct sunlight for the duration of my shift. Well, 3 days in, and I passed out standing in the men's restroom from advanced heat stroke. The gas company staff called an ambulance for me, and I was airlifted to the hospital. I mean, traffic in this part of the city, by the way, was notoriously terrible, especially late in the afternoon and early evening, and in this instance, every second counted. At the hospital, my body temperature was 105 degrees, and my pulse was a blistering 147. It took the doctors 2 days to get my temperature back to normal, as well as address all the damages the excess heat had done to my body. While I was getting life-saving care at the hospital, my abandoned post was infiltrated by 3 men who stole the catalytic converters from 18 vehicles. The parent company was livid, and when I was inquired as to why I wasn't at my post when the theft occurred, my doctor at the hospital took the phone and informed them of my condition upon arrival at the hospital. In the aftermath, I was reassigned. The broken air conditioner in the box was replaced with a 40,000 BTU unit that required a separate generator to power. And a few weeks later, my security company lost its contract with the gas company after my replacement fell asleep in the box, while the thieves returned to steal another 20 catalytic converters. But honestly, I'm glad I got away from those people because they literally put my life in danger. Wow, this company did not care about you at all. They literally made you sit in a box that's made of metal in the middle of a heat wave and try to be like, man, you need to stay there no matter what. And even after the theft occurred when you weren't there, they try to make it seem like you abandoned your post and were actively trying to find some reason to pin this on you. And that is crazy in my opinion. Like, this is why people hate their jobs nowadays. They work for people that literally just don't care about them. They only care about their stupid converters instead of the person sitting in the box baking to death. So yes, I'm glad you don't work there either because these people seriously suck, as they did not care about your safety in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not following my husband's family tradition by naming our future son in the way that they demand it? Because right now I feel like we've upset the entire extended family, and at this point we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband comes from a very traditional family. While we disagree with his family on many things, it has never really been an issue until now. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, and my husband husband and I couldn't be happier, as we've been trying at this for a while. Since I first found out I was pregnant, we've been discussing names for our child. In my husband's family, the tradition wants the child to be named after his grandfather. And basically, firstborn men in his family only have one of two names, James or Henry. My husband's grandfather was James, so his name is James too. My husband's father is called Henry, so our child should be as well, and so on and so forth. But my husband and I didn't really feel like calling our child Henry, and although it's a beautiful way to honor family members, we really wanted our child to have a name that would be personal, that would truly be his. So we chose another name, and decided to wait until after the birth to reveal it to everybody. Well, this week, my mother-in-law came to visit us and help us set up for the baby. She brought us some presents, amongst which was a bunch of clothing on which she hand-embroidered the name Henry. I said that it was nice and I thanked her for it, but told her that we wouldn't be naming our child Henry, which is something that we had already told her in the past. She then started insisting and saying that it was a tradition, so it had to be that way. But I explained to her that we would rather give our child a name that we chose, and that Henry could be his middle name. Well, she immediately went to my husband and started saying things like, "You're not going to let her do that to our family," and making it very dramatic, saying that I was breaking a tradition that went back hundreds of years. And honestly, I'm not even sure about that. My husband tried to explain that we both agreed on the name and all the reasons why we made the choice, but she simply wouldn't listen. She suggested that we name him Henry on paper as his legal name and then called him something else, but I thought that would be confusing for him and told her that he would be named what we chose. Well, she kept begging my husband and saying that I was ruining the family tradition, and at one point I lost it, which is partially to blame on my hormones, I think. And I told her straight up that it was our child, so we did what we wanted, and we didn't have to follow a stupid tradition. After that, she stormed out, and my husband has since received text messages from his father and sister accusing me of making his mother feel really bad and some other stuff that I don't really remember. I get the importance of tradition, and it can be really beautiful, but also I feel like that shouldn't be an obligation, and it's okay to change things. We won't change our baby's name because we're really set on that, but maybe we were wrong for not following the tradition. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm mentally exhausted by this drama, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, I cannot fully describe how much I hate traditions like this, where the family locks you into doing a certain thing a certain way simply because the family's been doing this for generations. I find that crap so annoying, and I don't blame you for breaking free of that, because you know what? You have it 100% right. This is your kid. You can name your kid whatever you want. And guess what? If you don't want to name it Henry, then you don't have to. These people cannot force you to name it something that absolutely is outside of what you guys want to name this kid, and that's final. Like literally, no one has any other say in this. Like, why should you be locked into some stupid name, all because some very deceased relative decided to do this and it somehow caught on? So no, you're not in the wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk here, because the extended family you're dealing with are obnoxious. I mean, seriously, just look at what they're getting upset about. They're actually getting pissed off that you're not following along and naming this kid what they want it to be named. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly manipulative and a giant red flag. And that is not something that I think you ever should have to deal with. My friend's entitled mother claims that her daughter's behavior is all because of me, stating that I'm a bad influence and that I'm the reason she's making all the wrong choices. But now, after all these years, she's now coming to me asking me to be a good influence in her daughter's life. And I'm honestly so blown away that things changed so quickly, because the way she treated me in the past was absolutely ridiculous. Here's what happened. When I was growing up, I had two friends that were the same age. We were literally babies together and continued to hang out as young girls. One of my friends moved to another state, so I visited with her less often and became closer to the other friend, who I will call Nina for the sake of the story. Nina was the oldest child and only girl, and was extremely spoiled. Her parents, especially her mother, regarded her as the most beautiful and special child in the world. Her mom and my mom were friends, and her mom had hurt my mom's feelings by indicating that I looked weird as a child because I favored my dad. My mom was offended and didn't think Nina was all that cute either, but kept it all to herself. And by the way, she told me this later and didn't escalate it at the time. I was raised in a highly structured and disciplined home, so besides the occasional bad attitude, I wasn't much of a problem. I am an only child, but we struggled a lot. I dealt with homelessness multiple times growing up, as well as helping with caregiving for multiple ill relatives. I'm grateful to these experiences as they made me mature and grounded quite early. Nina, however, continued to be pampered and given whatever she wanted. The word no was foreign to her. But you know what? I didn't care, as it was none of my business. As we became teens, Nina started sneaking out of her house and messing around with boys. Her family is religious, so this was completely prohibited. Nina had told me that she had a boyfriend but nothing else. And at the time, I wasn't interested in boys, especially not the oily, irritating ones that were around me. One day, Nina's mom called my mom very upset. She then informed my mom that I was no longer allowed around Nina or even welcome to their home. My mom asked why, of course, and that's when Nina's mom accused me of being a bad influence on her daughter. She said that Nina had been caught sneaking out of the house and that she had obviously learned that behavior from me. Well, my mom was infuriated and told her that I did not act in such ways. Her daughter's misbehavior was not my fault, but a result of years of spoiling and lackadaisical discipline. This argument went nowhere, and ultimately Nina and I weren't allowed to be friends anymore. I was devastated and angry. I never snuck out or acted out in such ways, and yet somehow I was the one being blamed, because to Nina's parents, she was perfect and couldn't possibly be at fault. It just had to be the ugly poor kid that taught the perfect and beautiful Nina this behavior. A couple of years go by and Nina becomes a teenage mom. Apparently, she admits to her mom that her behavior is her own doing, but of course, we never receive an apology or a phone call and only find this out later. Well, in present day, I'm around 19 years old and Nina has a toddler. And when my parents and I go to get our taxes done, we run into Nina's parents. They were happy to see us and very polite and friendly, and it was then that Nina's mom looks surprised when she sees me. She then says, "Oh my god, you actually grew up to be so pretty." And I think to myself, okay, thank you, I guess. Like, I was never ugly, lady, but I digress. My mom is visibly annoyed at the comment, but she still remains polite. She asked about my life and finds out I'm doing well, and I will be starting college soon. She asked for our contact information and we exchange numbers. Later, she calls and opens up about Nina being a bit out of control, and she sees that I have it together and wonders if I can be a positive person in Nina's life now. And when we heard this, my mom and I were dumbfounded. She can't be serious, right? She still had not apologized, but hinted that Nina had admitted to being sneaky for some years. My mom said it was up to me if I wanted to reconnect, but I owed them nothing. Now, I attempted to speak with Nina, but on our first conversation, she complained that her parents had purchased her a new car, but she wanted a truck. They didn't listen to her once and she was enraged. She also said her grandma had purchased her daughter unattractive toddler clothes and not the luxury brand ones that she was accustomed to. Unfortunately, it was then that I realized we had nothing in common and we never spoke to each other ever again after that day. Wow, what a spoiled brat, but also what an awful mother. Nina's mom is a piece of garbage for blaming that crappy behavior on you. I can't stand people who do that, who literally are ignoring the way their kids are acting, but still find some way to look around and be like, it's not my fault, it's that person's fault. Meanwhile, you're sitting there like, wait a second, I didn't do anything. Just because you're friends with her and associated her loosely in some kind of way doesn't mean that you are solely responsible for her behavior. That literally falls on Nina's shoulders and nobody else. So seriously, I don't blame you for kicking Nina to the curb. She clearly does not have her life together, and I don't think your involvement in her life is going to fix that in the slightest. An entitled Karen loses her mind after I tell her that her son is not allowed to smack the tank that's full of fish, resulting in one of the weirdest Karen meltdowns I've ever seen in my entire life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been working and helping at a small pet shop in town since I was 14 years old, and for reference, I'm now 20. I basically just helped around for 3 years, but after that, I've become an official employee. Even when I'm just buying fish food on my off days, I'll help out, and my coworkers would even ask me to help with customers when they were busy. I mainly got the job to get out and force myself to talk to people since I'm extremely antisocial and also autistic. And you know what? It helped a lot. I've been a fish keeper since I was 4 years old, and I'm not talking goldfish in a bowl. Think more like full tropical with live plants. And after a coworker was fired for stealing, I quickly became the fish room guy for the pet shop. Everything in there is my job and I absolutely love it. For those who don't know, banging on fish tanks is a big no-go. Almost every day, someone with a young child, sadly even adults, would walk in and tap or bang on the glass, and I would always ask them to stop, and they usually would. But unfortunately, that leads me straight to this fateful day where I meet a Karen and her child who truly blow my mind. This Karen and her 5 or 6-year-old boy walk in and go straight to the fish room. As always, I'm right behind them to help, and the kid wasted no time running to the tanks and being amazed with our large variety. Before I can even say, "Hello, how can I help you today?" this kid is full on banging on the glass. Like my coworker came in because she heard him doing it while he was screaming to his mom that he basically wanted everything. I politely asked the mother to ask her son to stop, since kids tend to listen to their parents better, but the following conversation took a turn for the worse. This entitled Karen looked at me and said, "Why? What is he doing wrong?" I said to her that banging on the glass stresses the fish out and can cause them to get sick. This Karen then looks at me with a scowl and says, "And?" So I continue and I say, "Well, it's not good for the fish. They could die if they're sick." This Karen then says, "Well, it's not my problem. Let him do what he wants." I then address the boy and I say, "Hi there, can you please stop? You're scaring the fish." And apparently that was the worst thing I could have done because this entitled Karen begins shouting at me. She screams out, "Don't you dare talk to my son like that." Now, it's important to note that I have permission by the owner to kick someone out if they're being disorderly. So I say to her, "Ma'am, if you don't stop yelling and get your son to stop doing that, I'll have to ask you to leave." This Karen then loses her mind. "Excuse me? You cannot talk to me or my son like that. Anyways, it's your fault he is still doing it. If you would just catch our fish, we would be gone by now." I say to her, "Ma'am, you have not even told me what you're looking for. How must I help you?" She then says something that honestly makes me crack up in retrospect, but she yells at me, "I don't know, you tell me." I say to her, "Ma'am, what are you looking for so that I can help you out?" But this Karen just responds back by saying he wants a fish. When I ask which one and how many they would like, she says to me, "I don't care, ask him. I'll be up there looking for dog food." The kid stopped banging on the glass by now since his mom was yelling at me, and I could see that he was a bit distraught. With the same friendly tone I've been using this entire time, I ask him what he wants and I get him 2 goldfish. The lady then complained to my coworker at the pay point about me, but it was there that she got a friendly last warning. But in the end, this entitled Karen was acting completely unhinged, and anytime I think about it, it honestly always cracks me up. Wow, I'm kind of surprised you even sold her anything at that point because my god, the second someone starts raising their voice, even after you have permission from the manager to kick them out, like at that point I would have been like, "Okay, you gotta go. Not only is no one gonna talk to me like that, but also you're literally ignoring the rules of the store." And it's like, seriously guys, in today's day and age, you're really gonna be smacking the fish tank? We've all seen Finding Nemo, but like, my god, there's no reason to keep doing that. Especially if you're watching your kid do it. Like, you know that's bad for the fish, but you're still letting it happen. But either way, you handled this way better than I would have, because that Karen would have been kicked out the second she raised her voice at me. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiotic supervisor refuses to get involved in a case that literally is going to get us sued, and only once the president of our company gets involved do they finally step up and try to do their job, resulting in her getting exposed for being a crappy supervisor, but also getting removed as a supervisor altogether. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in human resources, and recently an employee called me with a rather serious concern, and this is one that I could not fix due to legal regulations. I explained this, and they said they needed the matter escalated to my supervisor, and they were considering taking legal action if it wasn't addressed properly. And I also want to say I'm sorry for keeping it intentionally vague, just to ensure the privacy and prevent repercussions for me. I talked to my manager while the employee was on hold, and they said they couldn't take the call to them right then, but to escalate it to them via the email thread this employee had also started. Well, I explained this to the employee, and they seemed reasonably happy, and I sent the email to my manager immediately after getting off the phone. A week later, my manager responds to the email thread, with the employees included, as well as adding me, and says they will have me handle this from here. Well, they never sent any other email. They never did anything to help out, and they just waited a week after it was escalated to them, and then immediately sent it back to me. I responded to the email without the employee included, and explained the situation again, reminding them why they said they would be handling it. They then told me that this was in my job description, and I had to handle this, as they didn't have any time. They also said that they never agreed to handle it. So with that bit of context, I decided to maliciously comply and handle it. I explained there was nothing we could do again, and that I couldn't provide them with any further assistance or escalate the case. Unsurprisingly, a few weeks later, we get a lawsuit. And guess who finally steps in to handle the situation? But guess what? It's too late. The CPO and the president were already involved, and I was able to provide the supporting documentation showing my supervisor refused to take over and prevent a potential lawsuit. Now, they didn't fire her, but she was removed from a supervisory position, so in the end, I call that an absolute win. Wow, I love it when supervisors are like, this is not my job, and you're the one that has to handle this. This isn't your job description. See you later. And only once it gets really bad and they're like, wait a second, we're getting sued, and then one of the CEOs of the company gets involved, only then do they step up and say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And it's like, what are you doing? Where were you like a month ago? Not to mention the fact that she only wanted an email thread so she could say, I'm not taking care of this. I never agreed to this. Because she knows for a fact that because it's in writing, she can deny anything that phone call ever said. Like, seriously, what an absolute scumbag. So good for you for having that email chain, because actually that kind of helped you in the end, as this exposed your supervisor in a way that they will never recover from. My entitled mother opened up credit cards in my name and said that she would pay them off once her retirement money came in. But even now, she is still racking up debt on these cards, causing me a lot of stress and a lot of worry, as I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, at the beginning of 2023, my mother opened 2 lines of credit under my name without my knowledge, and this is all while I was a full-time student, using them to cover bills and other expenses. Much later, I discovered both credit cards when I signed up for Experience Credit Report Services, and I saw them under my name. After I confronted her, she promised in both text messages and voice notes that she would pay off all the cards that she had opened in my name once she received her retirement money. Well, when the funds came in, she did pay off both cards. I then directed her to close the accounts since they were open without my full awareness. However, an argument ensued when she refused to close them, and she even said she would evict me if I filed an identity theft report or disputed any charges, which also, as a side note, I have documentation of her saying that. Now that I've graduated and am actively seeking full-time employment and a room to rent, I've noticed that she continues to rack up debt on these cards. Despite her earlier promises to pay them off, it's becoming increasingly clear that she may not follow through and the debt is likely to keep growing. She justifies her actions by saying that she needed the cards to manage bills while I was a student, which I guess I understand. However, I have multiple messages where she explicitly agreed to pay them off, and all notifications and emails related to the credit accounts go directly to her and not me. As I plan to move out, I'm concerned about how to resolve this situation and free myself from the debt. Given the evidence I have of her promises to pay off the cards, what are my options for addressing this and protecting my financial future? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is seriously so bad. Like, your mom committed fraud. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what's going on. You can't open up credit cards on behalf of someone else so that they get stuck with a debt that you're racking up. That's illegal. You can't do that. So if I was in your shoes, the only option I would even have is to report her, regardless of whether or not she evicts me. Like, seriously, that is so messed up, it's not even funny. Because you do not deserve to be stuck with debt that you did not sign up for. And in my opinion, your mom deserves to pay for the crime that she is literally committing. A scammer tricks my brother into giving him $500 after he hacked my husband's Instagram account. So I decided to get to work by spamming him with so many spam emails that it allowed my husband to get his account back in a way that we truly didn't think would happen. And I've honestly never felt more satisfied about getting back at someone in my life. Okay, so Thursday night, my husband, my mom, and I go out to dinner with my brother. On our way home, my husband is driving and gets a message from one of his friends on Instagram asking for his help. They say they need help getting back into their account, and he said, "I've seen that screen. Can you help them, please?" And I just say, sure. Well, long story short, I accidentally fall for a hack on his Instagram, and he loses access to it. My brother, who for all intents and purposes is a bit of a moron sometimes, got asked by the person on my husband's account for $100. He sends the money, and then they ask for $400 more, and he sends that as well. And by the time he finds out it's a scam, he's down $500. And listen, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm both hormonal and bored, and this idiot used an email to contact my husband to get the code to get into Instagram. So at that point, I get to work. It started out with a scammer messaging my husband's fake Instagram last night. I play with him for a little bit over there, and he blocks the account. So I create a series of Instagram accounts and bother this guy for about 2 hours. When he blocks me on all of those, I decide to really ramp up the crazy. I message him via the email, and I let him know that this is far from over. He blocks me there as well, and when I should be sleeping, I painstakingly spend 6 more hours signing the email up for spam, religious groups, adult stores, literally anything and everything that would get him frustrated, and email him several times a day. And in the end, I didn't get to sleep until about 4:30 in the morning. Now, I don't think we'll ever get the $500 back, and that's a lesson my brother will have to learn, unfortunately. But we did end up getting the account back. I guess the spam emails worked, and the scammer must not have been able to get the Instagram notification in time to stop my husband from logging back in and locking it down. And sure, it was a lot of effort, but I'm currently out of work with not much to do in my small town. So it was fun to mess with the guy for a while, and it was totally worth losing sleep to make sure that this got done. Yeah, this is seriously so stupid. First off, the brother in this story is an idiot. Anyone that says, "Oh yeah, I need some money real quick," I'm gonna call them up and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Explain your situation to me. Is there anything else I can do for you?" or something like that. That way I can at least have some kind of empathy for their situation and understand why they want that money in the first place. And for me, if I don't get any of those details, then I'm like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry, I'm hard up for cash," or I'll make any other excuse because honestly, I'm not gonna be scammed like that. So for the brother to fall for that is honestly so dumb. That should not have happened. Like seriously, across the board. He didn't think for a second to text his brother and be like, "Hey, do you really need that money?" or something like that, especially $100, not to mention an extra $400. Like, are you kidding me right now? What's going on? But I think you really did make a big difference by getting all those spam emails sent his way, because I guarantee you that smokescreen is the only reason your husband got his account back, because I am seriously convinced that that made all the difference. An entitled couple honks their horn at me literally the second after the light turns green, so I decide to confront them and humiliate them in a way that they truly were not expecting. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was on my way to pick up my boyfriend from work after delivering my Uber Eats orders. On my way there, I pull up to a light, and I'm the first in a single line of cars. The second the light turns green, the shiny new black Palisade behind me lays into their horn. So, annoyed, I slowly make my way across, and about halfway in, I go back to normal speed, just to let the cars behind me make it too. Now, on the main road, I notice them keeping up with me but lagging behind a car space. We pull up to a light within 20 seconds, and I decide to confront them. I put on a worried look as I roll down my window, and they roll theirs down as well. Inside, I see just what I expected. What looked like a 48-year-old Karen, complete with a fake tan and crispy fake beach curls, and her aggressive mid-50s steel-faced husband. I look at him and I say, "Hey, are you guys okay? Is there an emergency or is someone dying?" The Karen looks at me and says, "No, it's just that you're driving like an idiot." I say to them, "The light just turned green, and you couldn't wait 2 seconds for me to move?" Her husband says, "You need to get off the road because you can't drive." I say, "Well, you need to learn some patience." The Karen then interrupts me and says, "Yeah, you're an idiot, and your right blinker is still on." I say to them, "Yeah, I know, because I'm going that way, you idiot." Karen then says the dumbest thing possible when she says, "Go back to Chili's," even though she meant Chile, the country, or wherever you're from. I say to them, "Whatever, you're not worth it. You're both not even worth it anyways." From there, I rolled up my windows and put my music back on as I ignored them. And to be completely honest, I'm fed up with these entitled older people, so it felt good to jab at them for their behavior. About 20 more seconds, the light turns green, and the SUV takes off to the next red. They seriously then try to cut me off, so I merge into the new right lane as I planned. But then they merge on there too, with a buffer car between us. And this guy, I'm sure he's probably gonna check me, follow me, or confront me physically if I actually turned with them. They're both at least twice my age. I slid back over a lane, back in the direction I meant to go, and I happily mashed my horn a bit and flipped them the bird as they were stuck going a direction they weren't even going. And it honestly felt so good to waste their time over it because their attitude was absolutely uncalled for. Yeah, screw those people. I hate people like that. It really drives me nuts. These people lay on their horn the second the light turns green. It's like, my God, have even a shred of patience. What's wrong with you? So I personally love this kind of revenge, and I think these people absolutely deserved it because their attitude was completely uncalled for. My best friends turned our living situation into an absolute nightmare, causing me to not only move out, but also get some petty revenge by taking everything with me that I ever brought to that house. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I lived with all of my best girlfriends in a cute house. Shortly after moving in, I got more serious with my boyfriend, and things got hostile really quickly. As it turns out, he was a textbook narcissist and wouldn't let me go out with them anymore, and it created a huge gap in our friendship that heavily relied upon drinking and partying. I stopped getting invites to outings, and they would throw huge parties without telling me, bounce balls on the floor above my head, and they would sneak into my room when I was at work and just snoop through my stuff. Now, we were all young, and looking back, it was definitely a shallow friendship. Literally a situation where girls were being mean girls. Well, I finally got them all to sign a document releasing me from the lease, and I got a new place with my boyfriend as fast as I could, and I was out of there within a month. I worked at Home Depot, so I got a lot of cool or essential things for the house. But on my last day, I was determined to take every single item that was mine. I felt like the Grinch unscrewing all my light bulbs, taking all the toilet paper, the nails in the walls, literally anything and everything that I brought to the house, I took it back with me. And finally, for the best part, I licked every single piece of cutlery in the kitchen and put them away. To this day, I don't think it was enough, and I haven't spoken to any of those girls since then, but it brings me so much joy knowing that they would go into rooms and try and turn on lights, but there were no light bulbs within sight. Because trust me, these people deserved it more than anybody else. Okay, honestly, this has always been one of my biggest fears, especially when it comes to moving in with friends, or even the possibility of moving in with them. Because you're no longer just friends who see each other for a few hours and then head off and go back to your own space. You're suddenly on top of each other, and there's no way you can ever get away from that. So thankfully you got out of that house and you were able to have a new life with your boyfriend, because these people sound absolutely awful. And if I was in your shoes, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not personally texting my coworker that I wouldn't be riding with her to work this morning? Because right now she is freaking out on me, claiming that I've been using her and that I'm a bad friend. And at this point, I'm honestly super confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I recently started a job where my company provides accommodation. So my coworkers and I live in the same compound. I'm in training with 3 others. And for the sake of the story, we'll call them Anna, Julia, and Ellie. And Anna and Julia are the ones with cars. Anna offered to drive me and Ellie to and from work, saying it didn't make sense for us to Uber since she was going the same way anyways. We offered multiple times to pitch in for gas, but she refused. So we'd occasionally buy her coffee or lunch just to thank her. She would text in our group chat in the morning when she was about about to leave, so Ellie and I could meet her downstairs. We usually left at around 7:15 in the morning, and this arrangement worked fine for 3 weeks. One morning, Julia texted the group at 7 o'clock in the morning, asking for help and then offered a ride. So I replied by saying, sure, I'll join Julia today. And she said she would leave at about 7:20 in the morning. When I went downstairs, I saw Anna's car still parked, which was really odd. Julia called her twice and got no answer, and I called once and I got no answer. On my second call, she finally picked up. I asked if everything was okay since we saw her car was still there, and she just said to me, yeah, I'll see you there. And then she hung up. Minutes later, she texted the group chat asking if we had left, even though I had just told her on the phone that we had. And when I confirmed, she replied by saying, thank you for replying, which in hindsight felt really passive-aggressive. When she arrived at work, she immediately started yelling at me in front of everyone. She was furious that I didn't even text in the group chat and that she waited there like a stupid person. I told her that I had texted her at 7 o'clock in the morning, but she insisted that I had not. Julia then pulled up the chat to prove that I did, but Anna snapped back that I should have personally messaged her. She basically wanted me to say, Anna, I won't be joining you today. I will be going with Julia. Then she said to me, I was good while I provided Uber services, but the moment I'm not needed, I don't even deserve a text. Now at this point, I was shocked. She was the one who offered the rides in the first place, and now she was making it sound like I had been using her. I reminded her that she always refused gas money and that we often bought her coffee and food as a thank you, but she doubled down, acting as if I had disrespected her. The rest of the day, she ignored us, barely participating in any training, and when it was time to leave, she suddenly said, okay girls, I'm leaving if you want to join. Well, Ellie and I felt too uncomfortable after her outburst, so we just politely declined and went with Julia instead. It's been a week now and she acts normal during training, but avoids us during breaks and leaves without saying goodbye. She hasn't brought it up again, and honestly, I don't want to, because I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Yeah, she is completely the problem here, and in my opinion, that is so weird. You literally messaged her in the group chat like she was wanting. Like you communicated to her and said, hey, I'm going with Julia, and the chat log says that yes, you did do that. So for her to act like some kind of weird victim and be like, wow, I can't believe you used me, while also projecting this weird savior complex, like seriously, this is dumb, and I don't blame you for being like, I'm not riding with you ever again. Because in my opinion, the way she's acting is so weird, because the message was already delivered. If she can send some passive-aggressive crappy remark by being like, oh, did you guys leave already? Oh, well, thanks for replying. Then you can absolutely also say, hey, I'm going with Julia, because that shoe could easily be on the other foot. You could turn around and be like, well, why didn't you message me personally? Why did you send it to the group chat instead of talking to me directly? Like, this is all so stupid. She's literally making a mountain out of a molehill. She even confirmed on the phone that she would see you there by literally saying, okay, I'll see you there, which implies that you'll see her at work. Like, what is happening right now? So honestly, I think the biggest silver lining here is that you now know that Anna is kind of crazy and she is not someone that you would ever want to ride with. Because clearly, if it doesn't go the way that she wants, she's not only going to play the victim, but she's also going to blame you in some kind of way, despite the fact that you communicated literally everything perfectly. An entitled Karen demands that she be allowed into the mall early, skipping ahead to the front of the line and claiming that she has important things to do and that she absolutely deserves to go first. Things were so weird that she even brought her own security guards that began barking orders at the mall security, stating that they had to comply and let her in. But fortunately, this Karen gets shut down in a way that is truly satisfying, making me glad that I was early just to see it all take place. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened yesterday, and I'm still trying to process the sheer audacity of it all, while also feeling very smug about the results. Okay, for a bit of reference, it is Ramadan, and like most malls here where I live, they open at 3 o'clock p.m. on weekdays and stay open until 3 o'clock in the morning, which basically means there's plenty of time for everyone to shop, eat, and do whatever else they need. But apparently that wasn't good enough for one ultra-entitled Karen who thought that she was above the rules of the mall. I got to the mall at around 2:30 p.m. to grab a good parking spot before the rush to catch some shopping for my wife. A few other cars had already started forming a queue outside the parking entrance, with all of us patiently waiting for security to open the gates at 3 o'clock sharp. Now everything was normal. That is, until Her Royal Highness Karen herself rolled up in her big black pickup truck with 2 private security guards in tow. She pulls right up next to the security gate, completely ignoring the queue of cars behind her, rolls down her window, and tells the mall security, open the gate right now, I have things to do. The guard politely tells her that the mall isn't open yet, and that she needs a queue like everyone else. But of course, Karen doesn't take no for an answer. She says to him, do you know who I am? Do you see my guards? I don't wait in lines. She then literally waves at her guards, who step out with all of their gear, like they're about to escort her to the throne room, and they start demanding that security let her through. But the mall security security, to their credit, stood their ground. Security said, "Ma'am, no one enters before 3 o'clock p.m. Please queue like everybody else." This entitled Karen then scoffs and pulls out her phone to record, demanding to speak to a manager. At this point, the rest of us in line are just watching in anger and disbelief, which is only further amplified due to lack of energy and just the sheer heat of everything going on. A few minutes later, the mall manager shows up, looking visibly annoyed. He walks right up to the Karen's car and, in the most CEO voice imaginable, tells her the following: "Ma'am, your guards do not dictate mall policy. If you want to enter, you wait like everybody else. Now take your guards and move to the back of the line." The Karen says, "This is unacceptable. I'll be calling my husband and reporting you." But just then, the manager cuts her off and says, "You can report me after you move your car." This guy was an absolute legend. And the best part is that Karen actually shut up and sulked off to the back of the line with her guards looking completely useless. So the moral of this story is that even if you do bring your own goons, mall security will still not care in the slightest. And instead, you should respect people and try to not be a Karen like this one in the story. Okay, this Karen is an idiot. Like, she seriously had the audacity to go straight to the front of the line and pretend like she's some kind of hotshot, as if she's some kind of royalty that needs to be catered to right away. But it's like, dude, what are you talking about right now? This is not how this works. Just because you have security and are rich enough to have some doesn't mean that you're above the rules like everybody else in line. Like, that's really stupid. And it's like, these guys are fully decked out in like some dangerous gear, if you know what I mean, and they're demanding that this guy opens up the mall. Like, seriously, this is not some high-stakes situation. From the sounds of it, it seems like it's just some place to shop. Like, good lord, lady, calm down, it's not that serious. And in fact, the original poster, based on what they described, further explained that this literally is not like a war zone or anything like that, and there's no active conflict where they live. This Karen literally just had security to flex that she has money. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line. She had no business acting like that, and I love the fact that the manager shut her down in the way that they did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive 4 hours just so that my sister doesn't have to drive through New York City? Because right now my parents are really pushing for me to do this, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my parents recently got my 19-year-old sister a new car so she would be able to drive at college. However, since buying her car, my parents have not let her drive from Long Island through New York City. One of them would drive her car a couple of hours, and the other driving another car. They would stop somewhere and then go home together, while my sister would drive the rest of the way to college through rural upstate New York. My parents said they were concerned about her driving past the city as she was inexperienced. At the time, I thought this would be a 1 or 2 time type of thing, and that they probably want to let her not only get used to the car, but also driving through New York City. Well, fast forward to today, and my dad was diagnosed with vertigo and is unable to drive at this time. So my mom asked me to drive with her instead. However, I objected. This will be the 4th time this has happened, and I would not be compensated in any way, namely gas money or literally anything. If this was the first time, I would understand. However, she has had her car for almost a year and drives frequently at school. I asked my mom if this is what my sister wants or if this is what she wants, and that my sister has a nice, new, safe car and in my opinion is more than capable of doing the ride. I feel like it's also a little wasteful with regard to gas and time. My mother responded saying that she is uncomfortable driving through that area. Then my mom asked if I had driven on the parkways with my sister, because if I have, I would not want her driving through the city. My parents both tried to get my sister to practice driving on parkways so she would be better or at least more comfortable doing so. However, she refused to practice, and my parents just didn't force her. And this is another reason why I don't feel responsible to help my sister avoid driving past New York City. Furthermore, I personally feel that if this is what my mom truly thinks, then my sister should not have received a new car. Additionally, I feel that my parents' plan doesn't provide for my sister to grow as a driver because there is no exit strategy so that she could eventually drive to school, including through New York City, on her own. In the past month, my mom has always emphasized with me that one day she will not be here and I will have to do things on my own, claiming, well, what would you do if I was dead? However, I feel the sentiment was lost with my sister because she is the youngest. Also, I want to stress that it is my parents who want me to do this and not my sister. She wants to drive on her own but doesn't want to fight my parents on the issue. However, my objection to this request has been met with my parents saying, this is only 4 hours of your life. Do it for us and not for your sister. I personally feel the request is frivolous, it holds my sister back, contradicts the purpose of buying my sister a new car in the first place, and warrants some kind of compensation to some degree for driving 4 hours. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. You're not the jerk. This is so weird. You mean to tell me that your your mom, the only parent that actually can drive, is not willing to make that drive, but somehow says, oh, but you should do it. It's like, no, I don't think so. That's really stupid. Your sister clearly wants to make the drive, and that should be more than enough for your parents. I get that she's the youngest and they're like, oh, but our baby's driving into school. But for reference, the original poster is 22 and their sister is 19. You're not that much older than her. Like, that's only 3 years. And yet somehow they're okay with you driving it, but not her learning how to drive it for the first time. So no, this is so dumb. Driving 4 hours like that is a complete waste of your time, and this is something that your sister needs to do. And I just don't think you should be required to make that drive with her. My idiotic supervisor goes on a power trip, making ridiculous demands that truly don't make any sense. But today was her lucky day, as she finally got blamed for some of the stupid things that she's been doing on our shift, resulting in this lady literally never talking to me ever again. Here's what happened. So I worked as a night supervisor in a small private psychiatric hospital years ago. Department directors of individual patient units were on site from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday. So there was a bit of overlap in supervisory responsibilities between 3 o'clock p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. Now, the director of the high security acute care unit did not care for me as a supervisor, nor even as a human being. She made it very clear that she is in charge until 5 o'clock p.m. and not any time sooner. At every chance encounter, she had some snide accusation or remark to make about the night shift, whether real, perceived, or imagined. Nothing I ever did was correct or good enough in her mind. Now, one day, the evening supervisor traded shifts with me so she could attend her granddaughter's school play that afternoon. On that day, I received oncoming report from the nursing director, including ongoing construction progress as the facility upgraded its appearance. About 1 hour into the shift, I had completed oncoming rounds on the second floor and had just arrived on the first floor when a fire alarm sounded. The hospital operator announced a code red on the second floor south wing, which is opposite and 1 floor removed from the acute care unit. And as a side note, it was later discovered the construction workers accidentally set off the alarm. Now, it's important to know that nobody was to evacuate their area unless they were in imminent danger, told to do so by a supervisor, or ordered by a member of the fire department. At night, everybody was in their beds, so all staff had to do was head count and shut all the doors. During daylight hours, patients were up walking around the halls. They were in group therapy sessions or with individual counselors. I instructed the charge nurse to gather all the patients and staff into a large day room, complete the head count, and remain there until the all clear was announced on the intercom. As I started to leave, the unit director entered and demanded to know why all the patients weren't lined up at the door. Well, stupid sleep-deprived me didn't understand that this was a rhetorical question. I started to explain that this was the safest way to keep track of this population, and they were in no immediate danger. Well, she didn't really wait for an answer, and she just started yelling for everyone to line up at the door and leave the building. Just then, 2 firefighters arrived and asked me where the exit was to the outside courtyard. I then pointed down the hallway to where the director stood, all with 25 confused patients and staff in front of the exit. The lieutenant got about halfway to the exit, stopped and looked at me and asked, "What in the world are these people doing blocking the fire exit? Who's in charge here?" Well, I walked up to him, pointed at the director, and I said, "She is." And then I immediately turned to walk off the unit, listening to the lieutenant loudly tell her that they should be in a room with the doors closed, not blocking an exit. They went on to say, "We need to get outside, and you put these people directly in our way. The alarm location isn't anywhere near you. You have multiple barriers and firewalls that must be breached before you must leave." And this guy went on and on. At the next all-management meeting, the hospital administrator announced that in the future, directors will stick to managing their individual department issues. Shift supervisors were to remain in charge of global hospital operations, including managing emergency evacuation of patients during fires and other building threats. And you know what? I consider this a win because that director never spoke to me ever again. Yeah, I love it when people who are on a power trip get put in their place, because the person you're describing in this story is absolutely that. There's some power-hungry idiot who just wanted to boss you around, and that literally is not fair. Like, that really sucks for you. So good for you for explaining to that firefighter exactly who really is in charge, because that lady absolutely had it coming. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to stay in her lane when she crossed a line talking badly about my son? Here's what happened. Okay, I need to provide a bit of backstory here as it will be important to this story. I'm a 21-year-old female and I have a boyfriend who is 25 years old. I have a sister-in-law who's around the same age as my boyfriend and the same as my brother. My sister-in-law also has this friend who we will call Rose for the sake of this story. Rose is not her real name. Now, on December 11th of 2024, I found out that I'm expecting my very first baby with my boyfriend. And as all pregnancies go, as soon as a woman finds out that she's expecting, she will tell her close friends and family. I told my sister-in-law, and of course, she couldn't keep her mouth shut. and ended up telling Rose. Rose then contacted me and said, "Congratulations, I heard you're expecting a baby." So of course I asked, "Wait, how do you know that I'm pregnant?" As I literally didn't tell her, but she replied by saying, "Oh, your sister-in-law told me." I said okay and I let it go, as since it was my first pregnancy, I didn't want any complications. So fast forward to when I'm 15 weeks and 4 days pregnant, which is coming up on about 4 months of being pregnant, and I find out that I'm having a boy. I then went live on a social media app so that my other family and friends that couldn't make it could also see the gender reveal. After the party, I texted Rose to personally tell her that I was expecting a boy. Now, I thought she would at least say something like, "Oh, I'm happy for you, congratulations," or something like that. But that is not what I got. Instead, she snaps and in other words, pops off and screams at me, "I don't care what the F you're going to have, as it literally doesn't matter. I won't be able to see him anyways." I was quickly taken aback, and I responded with a simple, "What in the world do you mean?" She then puts in all caps, "You know exactly what I mean, don't play stupid." And I was even more shocked because she's never been this rude. Then after a few hours, it clicked that she exploded, saying that she won't be able to see the baby because of the fact that me and my boyfriend live 2 hours and 15 minutes from my parents and all of my close friends. It really hurt. But then she texted me talking about how I won't be a good mother and that she actually expects my baby to no longer be living in 48 hours after it's born. And when I read that, that broke me. I then snapped and texted her back. I said to her, "That's coming from someone who doesn't ever want to hang out with me, and when you do, it's only ever if I have money or if I'm driving my car. So please, just stay in your lane." I then proceeded to tell her that if she gets anywhere near my son, then I will personally have her kicked off all premises, meaning my parents' house or mine. Well, we haven't spoken ever since then, but it really leaves me wondering, am I the jerk in this situation for the way I handled this? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. Rose is out of her mind crazy. The second she said that line about your son is the second she needs to be cut out of your life permanently and forever. Like, this chick is insane. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be sharing this text message chain with literally everybody, even if you're afraid that it would make you look bad in some kind of way. Like, I would be screaming it from the rooftops about how this lady said, "Yeah, your kid's gonna be passing away in 48 hours, and you're gonna be a bad mother." Like, dude, what is going on right now? That is seriously messed up and you don't deserve that. And I even think you could have been a lot meaner towards this lady, because her attitude was completely uncalled for and you did not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for publicly telling my former coworker that I don't like them and that I could not recommend them for a job they were trying to get? Because right now I feel like I did this wrong and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ran into my ex-coworker, who we will call Sarah, at a bar while I was out with friends celebrating my birthday. We worked together for 2 years at a fast food restaurant, and I left this job in January of 2025. She was a shift lead and I've never liked her. I didn't like her management style or her personality. She came up to me at the bar and we had a 10-minute conversation, and I thought it was cordial and polite. She was mostly asking me questions about my new job, and she asked me if I would recommend her for a job at my new company. I mean, I got a job at a call center and it honestly was nothing glamorous, so I told her that I wasn't comfortable with that, but she just brushed it off with a bad joke. I ended the conversation and walked to the table my friends were at, and Sarah actually follows me. I didn't notice until I got to the table and she sat down next to me. My friends introduced themselves and I, without thinking, said something along the lines of, "I don't like you, can you please leave?" Now, I have autism and I could tell that was not the correct thing to say. Well, everyone seemed uncomfortable and Sarah was visibly shocked and upset. And my friends were also shocked and confused because they assumed that Sarah was a friend or someone I invited to the table. I mean, they had zero context of who Sarah is. After that, Sarah made a scene and told me that I was rude, a jerk, and a bunch of other things. She said that I embarrassed her, but she embarrassed herself by following me to my table uninvited. And yes, she knew it was my birthday. I do feel bad and know that I could have formulated a polite response, but she's a former coworker and an unpleasant one. I have many stories about her, but the worst example is that she made jokes about my autism and deafness, and she did this multiple times. She is fake nice and her friendship style is bullying other people. I don't know what Sarah wanted from me, and I wasn't going to hang out with her, especially not on my birthday. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling her bluntly that I don't like her? Because right now I'm not sure if I made the wrong move. Okay, on one side of this, I do see that you probably could have said it a lot better, but based on the things she was making fun of you about, in my opinion, it seems like she really deserves this. Like, some people just don't respond to you saying, "Hey, I can't do that for you," or giving them a soft approach of some kind where you're like, "Hey, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this is how I feel." So in this case, it sounds like Sarah would be one of those types of people who needs the blunt end of the stick so that she can know straight up that no, you don't like her and that you don't want her around. I mean, she even followed you back to your table as if you owed her something, and even had the audacity to approach you in the first place as if you guys were buddy-buddy. But in reality, she is literally just a bully. and you know for a fact she's going to you for some kind of like letter of recommendation because she can't get it anywhere else, because I'm willing to bet that she's burned every bridge around her, and so she's going to you as probably a last-ditch effort to get anything done. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you handled this perfectly, and in my opinion, the fact that she freaked out on you says everything you need to know about her, because that's the real person you dealt with for over 2 years, and I don't blame you for shutting her down in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to book a hotel for us while we attend my sister-in-law's wedding? Because I know for a fact that his family is going to treat me like garbage, and I'm honestly not looking forward to it. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I are going to be traveling soon to attend his sister's wedding along with our 1-year-old son. The plan was that we would land at our parents' place and attend one of the wedding ceremonies there. A few days after that, there's another wedding reception in my sister-in-law's soon-to-be husband city. My in-laws plan to book a few train compartments for the entire family, as well as an Airbnb for the 3-day stay there. Now, I really don't want to be in a confined space with my in-laws for that long, especially with my 1-year-old son. My in-laws and I used to be cordial with each other, that is, until my son was born. A few weeks after delivery, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law visited us to try and help out, but that's absolutely not what they did. All they did was just find any opportunity to hold him, regardless of whether he was asleep or in my arms, criticizing me for being too clingy with him when I would put my foot down, and basically started locking myself in my room with him, lament how poor my cooking was, and how sorry they felt for their poor son and brother who had to endure it. That is, until both my husband and I had had enough, and my husband hinted heavily that they had overstayed their welcome. Since then, I get hounded for not sending enough pictures and videos of him and how I dress him, and I'm seriously so grateful that we're far enough away that we see them rarely. I told my husband a couple of days ago that I'd rather we just fly from my parents' place to the other city and just stay at a hotel while we attend the second ceremony. My husband then said that that would make us look really snobbish, that he himself wasn't over the moon about the whole itinerary, but it was a family event and we should be with the family. The fact that he wasn't into it frustrated me even more, because we're literally like making all of ourselves uncomfortable for what? We got into an argument, his mother and sister's stay got rehashed, and I told him he was choosing to make me uncomfortable rather than potentially risk his family being offended. So honestly, am I the jerk for even bringing this up and saying that we should just get a hotel? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, your husband's extended family sound incredibly annoying. They're the type of people who are more obsessed about your son than you, and they clearly just don't like you, and it's like they're saying it without really saying it. And that, in my opinion, is way worse than them just straight up saying, yeah, we don't like you. Because I would much rather have the blunt approach than someone pretending to like me, when in reality they're just being passive-aggressive and weird, while also doting over your son as if you don't even exist. So in my opinion, I think it's a good idea to get a hotel, especially because your son is 1 year old. You know for a fact that if you're stuck in that Airbnb for 3 days, it's going to be a miserable 3 days. You are going to be so unhappy with the way they're going to be treating you that you're really going to be wishing you had some kind of accommodations to get away from them. And your husband's completely wrong. If they seriously think that you look like snobs and might be offended by you not being there with them, it's only because they don't have the opportunity to treat you like crap. Like his family sounds like a bunch of bullies. They want to pick at you and poke at your insecurities and say all these terrible things, all under the guise of like, oh, we're just family. But it's like, if we are family, then why can't you treat me like family? Why am I instead treated like the black sheep of the family who can't do anything right? They don't see you as the mother of your child, but just like a caregiver. And they're treating you like, oh my God, you're keeping the kid away from us. But it's like, dude, this is my son. What are you talking about? The fact that they're trying to bother him when he's asleep or like, I don't know, in your arms, like that is super annoying. And I cannot imagine dealing with that for what, 3 days? Like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to put up with that, and I'm not going to be in that situation. So no, you're not the jerk for asking for a hotel. Your husband's an idiot for not remembering the previous situation, and he is seriously acting so spineless. He needs to get a grip and say, okay, let me stand by my wife, because his family clearly treats you like crap, and that is not something you deserve in the slightest. An entitled neighbor demands that I move my car from out in front of their house, as they claim I have no right to park there, and that if I do park there again, they're going to report me to the authorities. So after receiving that letter, I not only took it personally, but I decided to get some revenge by not only happily getting the authorities involved, but also occupying the front of their house with as many cars as I could possibly get together. Here's what happened. Okay, about a month ago, I moved into a residential neighborhood, and it's important to note a few things as you read my story. My house does not have a driveway or garage, so I have to rely on street parking. This is not a gated or HOA governed area, and there are no signs, restrictions, permits whatsoever for street parking. This area is also not walking distance to anything but other houses, so anyone parking on the street is either a resident of the area or a visitor of a resident, which basically means there's no random people trying to to find short-term parking. Now, it's a quiet neighborhood, so I can usually find street parking in front of or close by my house. However, there is one neighbor that lives 4 houses down that feels that they own the public sidewalk in front of their property and constantly puts down cones to block off space that would fit about 3 cars. Now, I refuse to give them the benefit of the doubt that they do this to save spots for themselves because I take my dog on frequent walks and I've never seen them use these spots to park. Additionally, they have a long driveway that never has any cars in it and a detached garage, so they already have ample parking for their personal vehicles that I've never seen. On that note, I have literally never even seen these neighbors. Other than occasionally seeing lights coming from their backyard during nighttime walks, I would probably assume that there's no one living there. Shades are always closed in the front windows, and I never see any inside lights on from the front. One day I drove home and there was no parking available except in front of their house. It was late and I didn't want to park a block away just because of this entitled house. So I simply moved a couple of their cones to the sidewalk and I parked my car. The next morning, I saw that they had moved the cones back to the street behind my car, which I had to move again to get my car out, meaning that they definitely noticed and acted upon my illegal street parking, but you know what? I just shrugged it off. A week or so later, I couldn't find any parking again. So the exact same situation happened. I moved the cones and I parked my car. And what do you know it? The next day, I simply moved the cones they placed behind my car and I went about my day. Yesterday, I had the situation happen yet again, and as a side note, this is only the 3rd time in a month that I've moved the cones to park there. And as I take my dog on a walk this morning, I see a note on my windshield. It's not even handwritten and it's some kind of like printed note. It says the following: "This plate number has been turned into the parking enforcement. We encourage you to park in front of your own residence for the consideration of your neighbors." Well, needless to say, this note really pissed me off. First of all, if you believe in consideration of your neighbors, then you shouldn't be blocking access to public parking spots where your neighbors can park their car. Secondly, now you're threatening me for parking legally. It's like, do you want to start this fight? Because I will make you pay for it. And honestly, that is exactly what I started to do. My first revenge is that I called parking enforcement myself and I explained the situation, and the lady on the other end just laughed and said that my neighbors had no authority to give me any kind of notice like that, which I assumed to be the case. They also gave me a number to a Bureau of Street Services investigator who can come to take a look and then issue them a citation. Well, lucky for my neighbors, they are currently closed for the week as it is Friday afternoon, but trust me, I will be calling again on Monday morning. My second revenge is that I live with my girlfriend who has her car parked in front of our house. So you know what? I moved her car in front of the house with the cones to now make it 2 cars that they didn't want there. The added bonus is that she has a Tesla, so there will be cameras in case they try to do anything to either of our cars. Now, the potential third revenge is that if the citation situation doesn't happen or work out for whatever reason, I'm considering purchasing the ugliest, oldest, and cheapest car that I can find in my area and register it as a planned non-operational vehicle with a DMV and then keep it forever parked in front of their house. All things considered, I have no apparent reason why they wouldn't want to have anyone park in front of their house other than some simple aesthetic that they just want to maintain. They don't use the spots to park their own vehicles, and we would never have random people wanting to park there on a regular basis. But I'm honestly eager to see what happens because these people are absolutely out of their mind. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. The original poster states they live in Los Angeles, so literally there's no room for anyone as it is. So the fact that these people are like, oh yeah, we're gonna reserve all these spots in front of our house because we don't want people parked there. Like, that is so selfish and so messed up. They don't own the street. They can't just do that and get away with that. And I'm pretty sure this investigator is gonna have a field day with these people. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be taking pictures of everything. I would save that letter and document it and take pictures of everything around you and really prove that these people are acting out of line, especially with them putting the cones right back around your cars. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so weird. Like, seriously, get away from my car. Because in the end, I'm anticipating these people being proven wrong pretty much immediately because what they're doing is incredibly entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for walking away when I was asked to apologize for something that I didn't do? Because right now I feel like I did something wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I used to be best friends with a guy who we will call Brad, as well as his girlfriend who we will call Diane. All 3 of us used to eat lunch together, along with a few other friends. I am usually very chatty and social, but my grandpa had been in the hospital the past few days, and I wasn't as chipper as I usually am. So when Diane asked me to go with her to throw something away, I said yes so I could explain the situation to her. And also for reference, this wasn't abnormal for us to leave the guys for a few minutes, as this was usually a chance for us to talk without them. When we were away from the guys, I apologized for not talking as much and explained how my grandfather was in the hospital. Well, she stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Do you like my shirt?" She was wearing one of those black shirts that was tie-dyed with a bleach heart, and when she said this, I was really confused. So I responded by saying, yeah, I guess. Can I get back to talking about my grandpa who's in the hospital now? She then proceeded to sigh before saying, "I guess." By this point, we had finally gotten back to Brad and the rest of the group, and they saw we were obviously upset and asked what had happened. Before we could explain, Diane had stormed off, leaving me to explain the situation. After I had said what had happened, Brad asked me, "Well, why can't you just say I'm sorry?" It's important to note that until this point, I had been apologizing to Diane no matter what, if I was wrong or not, and I did this simply because I thought it was better than fighting. However, after some much-needed therapy, I decided to stop doing that and had determined that I shouldn't have to always apologize when things aren't my fault. After he said this, I was almost in tears because I felt like all those months of progress were going down the drain, and this is where I might be the jerk. Instead of explaining why I was upset, just like Diane, I stormed away without explaining or clearing things up. As I walked away, I could hear Brad telling his friend, "Wait, what did I do?" Which just made me more upset. So am I the jerk for walking away instead of explaining why I was upset? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I don't think you're the jerk, but I also think your friends are incredibly immature. Seriously, Diane storms off when you're about to be like, "Oh, I'm upset about my grandfather, it's not a big deal." Like, she literally is just super insensitive and doesn't care about your family in the slightest. And neither does Brad. Like, both of them really suck in my opinion. And the fact that Brad would even be like, "Oh, well, why didn't you apologize to Diane?" Like, that kind of behavior is super toxic and I can't stand that. Because you know what? I am a firm believer that you never have to apologize for something you didn't do. If it's not my fault and I had nothing to do with it, then congratulations, you are never getting an apology out of me. Why would you? That doesn't make any sense. It's idiotic, and honestly, it sets a really bad precedent. So no, you're not the jerk for walking away, because these people just don't sound like good friends in the slightest, and I really think that you can find better people than them. My entitled owner and employees claim that I'm not doing my job properly and that I need to work the front desk with all the other girls. But despite the fact that I manage a day spa and have a lot of other responsibilities, I'm getting paid a lot of money at a salary level for a job that I literally did not sign up for. Here's what happened. Okay, so I manage a day spa of about 25 employees, 4 receptionists, 2 phone lines, about 60 appointments per day, and we're open 7 days a week for about 10 hours each day. Now, at the time of this story, the receptionists have become disgruntled that I don't help them with their front desk duties as much as they seemingly feel that I should. And when I say as much as they think I should, what I mean is that they think I should be there 7 days a week from open to close doing their job side by side with them. But in reality, what they're really implying is that they want me to do it for them. Not only did they not even try to address this with me, but they went over my head and directly to the owner, who didn't even refer them back to me so that we could try to come up to some sort of understanding together. And instead of the owner letting them know I do a lot of other things, even when I'm not there to operate the business, and reminding them I have a lot of other employees and responsibilities to handle, he instead took their side, yelled at me for 4 hours, and then the next day yelled at me again in front of the one complaining to him for another hour. He showed these girls his support and offered me none, and ultimately said that I need to be up there working with them instead of handling other things around the spa. His reasoning is that they need help, and I should be at the desk at all times because I'm the face of the company. One of the girls told him, in front of me mind you, that all I do is laundry, but it's a day spa, so there is a lot of laundry that accumulates very, very quickly, and there's no one else to do it. It technically is a receptionist duty, and I tried to alleviate as much off of the receptionist as I could, so that is something that I've taken full accountability for except on my days off. When the owner tells me that I need to be up at the front, answering phones with the receptionist on duty, and that I need to arrive earlier to do this, you know, instead of him paying a second receptionist because he's too cheap and greedy to do so, I said to him, "You do not pay me to answer phones. You pay me to operate your business and keep things running smoothly in your absence." Well, his response was that he also doesn't pay me to do laundry, and that's what I do all the time when I'm here. And it's like, oh really? That's all I do? Yeah, okay buddy. This all took place about 3 days ago, and since then I do not leave the front desk, except maybe to go to the bathroom one time during my shift, despite the fact that I'm salary, so technically I don't have a shift. I just work a ton of hours, of course, with no extra compensation. But I have not touched the laundry since this conversation, and while it is kind of getting done, it's not getting done properly or efficiently, and it is starting to pile up. And we're talking both dirty laundry overflowing the baskets and clean unfolded laundry piling up on all the massage tables. When I walk past the nonsense, I just glance over and keep it moving. It is hard for me to leave things undone because I do have a strong work ethic, but since he doesn't pay me to do laundry and has made it clear he would rather overpay me me to answer phones, while they scroll their social media and stare into dead space, and instead of me actually running the business, that's exactly what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm curious how long it will take him before he tries to come back and tell me I'm not doing my job because the laundry is in shambles. Because at that point, I'll say something like, "But sir, I'm doing exactly what you told me to do," or should I say exactly what my own employees have told me I need to be doing, and you agree with them. At this point, I feel like they think I'm their employee because of how he handled it. The root of the problem is that they only get paid $15 an hour, and it's a high volume place, so the workload is intense, and I've never denied that. I do help them often, and I've always gone to bat for them, asking him to pay them more and begging him to budget for 2 people to be at the front desk during the busiest hours, as it certainly is a 2-person job. But I did not sign up or accept the position of a receptionist. I'm 48 and these girls are in their 20s. I will help when I can, but I'm the manager and there are a lot of things I have to prioritize. But you know what? If he wants to pay me far more to do the same job others are paid $15 an hour to do, then who am I to argue? As the business starts to fall apart since I'm not handling other things anymore, which by the way, how can I, when I have to perform their job with them the whole time, he will start to realize how much I was in fact doing when he and his receptionist team thought that I was only doing laundry all day. Okay, I really like this mentality, but I don't think it's gonna last, because I don't think he's gonna come back to you begging for you to fix the problems. If anything, he'll probably just fire you and get someone else for cheaper and probably save a bunch of money while also not getting a second receptionist at the front desk during the busy hours. Like, I really only see this as a net negative, and I don't think this is gonna go well for you. So in my opinion, if I was in your job, I would be finding another job. And sure, you're getting paid really well to be a receptionist for now, but I guarantee you that could change at the drop of a hat, especially with an owner who's so stupid they don't realize what they're doing. So I think it's in your best interest to find something else, because this guy could easily flip the table on you in a heartbeat. I'm considering breaking up with my girlfriend after she catfished me as a prank on Instagram, because after she impersonated one of my female coworkers under the guise that she would somehow catch me cheating, I now feel completely betrayed, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my girlfriend have been together for 2 years. I always thought she was very sweet and kind, and I really appreciate how much she loves me, and while she sometimes got a little jealous, I didn't think it was a big deal. Deep down, maybe I even enjoyed being doted on like that. It made me feel really attractive, which I never really felt like I was. Recently, we attended a work event organized by my company, and we met one of my coworkers there. She works at a different branch, and we hardly ever talk outside of work emails and calls, but we get along well enough. This event was my girlfriend's first and only time meeting this coworker. On the way back from the event, and the following day, my girlfriend was acting a little weird. She kept asking me about a work wife, and asking if I thought my coworker was pretty and other stuff about her. I knew my girlfriend could get kinda jealous, and I did my best to calm her down. No, that woman isn't my work wife. I don't follow her on any socials. I don't even have her personal phone number. I don't think she's more beautiful than my girlfriend, and I'm happy with my girlfriend, etc. and so on. Eventually, she seemed to relax and things got back to normal. Well, a few weeks later, out of nowhere, I got a follow request on Instagram from my coworker, and it's important to note that my account is on private. I approved the request and I followed her back as her account was also private. That account was almost nothing but a few pictures of her in swimsuits uploaded very recently. And at the time, I didn't really check, and I honestly didn't even scroll her account at all. It didn't look like anything overtly scandalous, just normal vacation pictures, but there was nothing but vacation pictures. It seemed weird, but I didn't really care. Then a few days later, she direct messaged me on Instagram. It was just small talk and I replied, but it wasn't flirty or anything like that in my opinion. She kept reaching out every few days, and eventually it did seem like it kinda got flirty. I told her I felt this was inappropriate and that I was in a relationship, and I would appreciate it if we kept things professional, which she seemed okay with. Well, my girlfriend seemed extra affectionate the days after that, and while I didn't suspect anything in real time, you can all probably see exactly where this is going. Still, at the time, I was happy, and my girlfriend even seemed to be better regarding her jealousy. But then, last week, I got a follow recommendation on my Instagram, and it was my coworker's real account. This one wasn't private, and was just a normal Instagram account, and just by looking through it, that was where those swimsuit pictures came from. Here they were, just a part of her normal Instagram account, which contained mostly normal pictures, and not just ones with her in a swimsuit like the other account had. It was then that I put 2 and 2 together. Before confronting my girlfriend, I talked to that coworker at work, and I asked her for her Instagram account, and she gave me her normal one, which I followed. And indeed, she gave me no indication that we ever interacted on Instagram before. So it became clear I was being catfished. I then confronted my girlfriend, and at first when I was trying to be subtle, she denied everything outright. Then she shifted to gaslighting me about it and saying that that it was just a prank, or she would say that it was a test, or that because she was cheated on before, she just needed to know that she could trust me. I told her that her being able to trust me was great, but how am I supposed to trust her now? She said that made no sense, and kept deflecting no matter how hard I tried to explain, going so far as to question how I even knew it was her if I wasn't cheating on her with my coworker. I told her that this was unfair and manipulative, and that I needed some time, and I just went home. She's been texting me and calling me ever since, saying that I'm ruining a great relationship over nothing, that I'm overreacting, and that when I finally realize how much she loves me, it might be too late, and it's not fair for me to throw away everything we've built over my stupid coworker. But to me, that just feels incredibly manipulative, and like she doesn't get what she did wrong at all. So I'm conflicted between wanting to just cut and run, or giving it another go. After all, we have been happy together for 2 years, but also, can I trust that we can rebuild something after this? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh wow, your girlfriend literally decided to go behind your back and catfish you, and then still somehow blame it on you. Like she's literally trying to be like, oh, this is nothing, you're ruining our relationship. But it's like, no lady, you did that. You're the one that did that the second you tried to catfish your boyfriend. This is so stupid, it's not even funny. If anyone's insecure and weird about this relationship, it's your girlfriend. Like this is the worst case of self-sabotaging I've ever seen in my life. And worst of all, it's completely self-inflicted. She literally did this to herself for no good reason other than her own insecurity and paranoia. Like you should not have to be tested like that in any way, shape, or form. Because I know that would not sit well with me at all. I would be questioning everything just like the original poster is. Because it would immediately make me wonder if this is really someone I want to stay with. Is this really the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? Or even get married to? And she even did this without any care of like consequences or anything like that. Like screw that, you could have lost your job over this. Because in my opinion, anyone who has to test their partner's loyalty by making fake accounts just to like instigate some kind of cheating situation, in my opinion, probably should not be in a relationship in the first place. You're clearly not in a healthy place in life, and this is not fair for the original poster or other people who go through this. So no, you're not the jerk here, and honestly, I think you can do a lot better than your current girlfriend, because her actions, in my opinion, are just a little too sketchy. Am I the jerk for telling my autistic brother to stop correcting me on something that I know more than him about? Because right now, my mom says that I was out of line, but at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And psychology also happens to be my 14-year-old autistic brother's special interest. I was visiting my family this past week, and my brother and I have been chatting about different interesting psychology things a lot. However, he likes to use social media as his prime source of information, which is fine, as long as you do more research before believing and repeating things. But he tends to just believe anything that he hears without fact-checking, especially if it's something that intrigues him. So it happened multiple times, where he would throw me a fun fact that was false, or he would correct me on something that I was telling him about with misinformation that was just not true. Now, I'd always been super gentle correcting him and reminding him to double check his information. Even though I did find it quite annoying, I never was harsh with him at all. But last night at the dinner table, we were talking about the structures of the brain and how psychology and medical things overlap. The conversation was mainly between my mother and I, as she's a doctor and could speak for the medical part of this, while my brother was just tuning in. We were talking about strokes and how it affects the brain, and I began explaining to my father about the left and right brain and how they control opposite sides of the body, when my brother stopped me to say that I was wrong and that it was the opposite way. I once again gently corrected him, but he was insistent that he was correct. I then reminded him that I was the one with the degree in this topic, and then he dropped it. Later after dinner, my parents, my brother, and I were all in the living room watching a movie that was on TV. During one of the commercial breaks, my brother brought up the left and right brain thing again, going on about how I was supposedly incorrect. I was really just done with the topic, and I was getting a little tired of being constantly corrected with misinformation. And I do not think that I said this in any aggressive or rude way, but my exact words were to say to him, I'd really appreciate it if you'd quit correcting me when you're incorrect. Your source of information is random people on the internet. My sources are textbooks, experimental documentation, and the DSM-5. My brother had then stormed off to his room, upset by what I had said, and my mother told me that I should have just let him have his way because he's autistic and just a kid, and in no way was I trying to attack my brother or be selfish and full of myself. I genuinely just wanted him to have the correct information, but the constant correcting began to get on my nerves just a little bit. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. Your brother is literally wrong. He's spouting off wrong information all because he read it on the internet instead of getting it from like a verified source. And I don't know about you, but that's something that absolutely needs to be corrected. And also, why should your brother get a pass just because he's autistic? Like, in my opinion, that's an awful excuse, and that just doesn't stand. There's no reason that should be used used as some kind of like get out of jail free card, because that doesn't help your brother in the slightest. Because in my opinion, letting him get his way is just not going to do him any favors. And I think you did the right thing by patiently and kindly telling him that you didn't want to talk about it and that he needs to get better sources than social media. My entitled family treats me and my husband like garbage and have even gone as far as to call me a gold digger and that I'm only with my husband for money. But after being mistreated by my husband's family for so long, we both decide that enough is enough, resulting in us getting the best revenge possible by changing our last name and disconnecting from them entirely, causing them to freak out in a way that we truly did not expect. Here's what happened. So I got married 3 years ago to my husband, and I changed my last name to his immediately following. My relationship with my in-laws was never super, but it was civil until about 2020 when our differences became obvious and they were hard to reconcile. They have never welcomed me into their family and never put forth any effort to be a part of our lives. At first, my husband just said things like, well, they're like this with new people, or this is just how they are. Over time, though, they have not only managed to alienate me, but my husband as well. They have implied that I'm digging for gold and have called me quite a few unpleasant names. My husband had enough with them during our first year of marriage, and when he went low contact with them, they tried guilt, manipulation, and passive aggressiveness to get him to resume what we would call his previous role in the family. And that role was him basically doing all the work in the relationship. Well, when that didn't work, they basically cut us off. They never called much before, but now they never called. And then act like it's our fault when they don't, and then play the victim constantly. Now, for a bit of background, I have BPD, which stands for borderline personality disorder, and my new last name just didn't feel like me, especially considering his family. After my diagnosis a year ago, my therapist explained sometimes people with BPD struggle with this since we struggle with identity as well. So it's been talked about a lot, and it was then that my husband had suggested that we both change our last names, and I thought it was an interesting idea. I didn't want my maiden name back because it's hard to spell and pronounce, and it's not all that common in our country. Now, I liked his last name, but it was such a common last name. We talked about this for about a year, and we settled on my deceased grandmother's maiden name. It's common, it's easy to say, and it's easy to spell. And we feel this honors my family, who we have to thank for our lovely life today. It was surprisingly easy. We set up a court date, we filled out the papers, we had a hearing all within a few weeks, and then we changed it on social media. Well, his family found out and they are super pissed off. And some of my family found out and they're pissed off. They said we had no reason or right to do this. I told all of them it was a decision between me and my husband, and it was not up for debate. On his side of the family, they cut us off and never even talked to us. And on my side, no one even owns the name, and it left with my grandmother when she passed away. One of my aunts tried to say that I needed their permission, but in my opinion, the only person I would need to have permission from would be my grandma or my father, but both of them have passed away already. My mother thought it was a great idea, and so did my siblings, but we are getting bombarded, and we're currently trying to gray rock all of them. But it's not like this was a rash decision. We are both very happy with the change, but the amount of backlash I've been getting has me wondering if we messed up by not announcing it or telling people in advance. What should we do? Okay, first off, you have every right to change your last name, especially if your husband's family is going to be treating you like crap in the way that they have been. Seriously, from day one, they've been treating you like garbage all the time, saying that you're digging for gold while also calling you all sorts of names, and then also trying to like alienate you and your husband all the time. I mean, who in their right mind would want to stay in a family like that? Like, if I was in your shoes, I would have the same conversation. I would be super pissed off that I'm still getting treated like garbage by these people who literally are masquerading as family. And then they're the ones that freak out all because you guys say, okay, we're going low contact, this is insane. As if they want you to stick around and enjoy this awful treatment. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. If you guys want to change your last name and no longer associate with those people, then my God, you have every right to do that. Because based on what you've described, these people sound like an absolute nightmare. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I was done inviting her to parties after she repeatedly took the leftovers that I had without asking? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I throw a lot of dinner parties, and I mean a ton. I like to cook, so I always put food on the table, and I would say that I'm a pretty good chef. One of my friends comes all the time, but the problem is that she takes all the leftovers. Every single time that there's a scrap left, she decides to take it. And sure, I appreciate that she doesn't want to waste food, but that is not the problem. The problem is that I want some leftovers too. So I told her when we're eating this time, I say, hey, don't take the leftovers, okay? And she said to me, yeah, that sounds good. Well, fast forward to the end of the party, and lo and behold, she takes the stupid leftovers. When I noticed later that night, I texted her and said, hey, if you can't stop taking taking the leftovers, I'm not going to invite you anymore. And she says okay to that. The next time that she comes over for a party, I remind her when we're eating, don't take the leftovers. And she again says okay. Well, when she's about to leave, I was sitting near the table, and guess what I see? I see that she's taking the leftovers again. So I tell her that if she couldn't listen to a boundary that I set, then the clear consequence that I discussed with her was that she would not be invited to any more parties. She then said that it wasn't fair that she couldn't have some, and she was only taking a bit this time. Now, I'm not sure if that's true, but I told her I didn't want her to take any. She then says okay and puts them back. Fast forward to the next time I hosted a party and she wasn't invited. Apparently, she found out through the grapevine and she got incredibly pissed off, saying that she put them back and I should have invited her again. Well, at this point, I think she might be right, and that I might be the jerk in this situation. So seriously, am I in the wrong? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're in the wrong. She clearly was taking advantage of your cooking, and she was taking all the leftovers and not leaving you any. In my opinion, leftovers absolutely go to the host, and then they can decide where they want to put them next, whether that's in their fridge or somebody else's. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. An entitled old jerk exposes my cards during a poker tournament, resulting in him getting disqualified, banned from rebuying in, as well as getting kicked out of the venue itself. Here's what happened. Okay, so I play a lot of poker as it is a nice hobby of mine, and 99% of the players I meet are super friendly and we enjoy conversation while playing. One of the biggest etiquette violations and rule violations is touching another player's cards. The player can show their cards if they want, but unless it's to prove your cards are better than someone else's, you can throw away your cards without showing. Playing in a tournament last Monday, I'm in a small blind, and everyone's only made the minimum bet to me. I have a pair of 9, so I raised to the equivalent of 3 big blinds. Now, the entitled idiot of this story to my left re-raises me to the equivalent of 13 blinds, and because of this, everyone throws away their cards and it goes back to me. Now, in my experience playing, older players tend to be very tight players, typically only playing high pairs, but they also tend to play a wider range of cards against younger players because according to them, they've been playing poker since before I was born. So I tend to prefer re-raising them pre-flop and playing aggressively. So I ended up re-raising him to the equivalent of 40 big blinds, and I'm committed to go all in against him if needed. Now, this entitled idiot thinks and sits there and thinks some more, and ended up showing me a pair of jacks and said, "Your pair of queens is good," and throws away his hand. The dealer then pushed all the chips to me, and I decide to just throw away my cards. Well, wouldn't you know it, this entitled idiot grabs my cards and flips them over to show a pair of 9s. Now, before anyone can say anything, the dealer instantly calls the manager over and explains the situation. Meanwhile, this idiot is chastising me for aggressively playing a pair of 9s and how he was ahead and should have just called his raise. The floor manager disqualifies him and kicks him out, which causes this moron to literally throw an instant temper tantrum. We're talking full-on toddler rage. He was screaming, "He's not playing correctly. He raised 9s pre-flop. He's an idiot. I folded pocket jacks. This is so crazy," and so on and so forth. Security, as well as the police, ended up dragging him away, and we eventually resumed our play, despite the fact that this guy was making a scene the entire way out the door. Okay, I've got to be honest, I really love this story because this guy is salty that he lost. He's just pissed off because he got outplayed in a way that he was not expecting. And I also love the fact that you said, "Nope, I'm not going to show you my cards," and you instead just throw him away, getting in his head completely, which obviously worked because this guy freaked out. He lost his mind over this, and that's really funny to me. So good for you for getting this guy in trouble, because from the sounds of it, he deserved to get banned. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my bachelorette trip date, all because of one friend who is desperately trying to reschedule it just so it can fit her schedule specifically? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm getting married this year, and my 16 friends and I have been planning my bachelorette trip. To make scheduling fair, I asked everyone to send me the dates they were not available so I could pick a date that worked for the most people, especially since some friends are traveling from other countries. After going through everyone's responses, there was only one date that worked for everybody, so I went ahead and announced it. That same day, one of my closest friends suddenly said that she had been planning a trip around that time. However, she had never mentioned it before and hadn't booked any flights, and was only reconsidering her date because someone told her her destination might be crowded. Since the condition for choosing my trip date was to prioritize the availability of the most people, I explained to her 3 separate times why that date was final. But despite that, she kept trying to change it. She even created another poll in our group chat to see if others could move their own important plans to accommodate her. She also started privately messaging people, trying to convince them to say they could be flexible. Now, at first, I didn't directly call her out in the chat, but after she made a second poll, I sent a general message stating that the date was already chosen and it wasn't going to change. Well, now she's upset and claims I embarrassed her by calling her out instead of speaking to her privately, even though I had already tried 3 times. I feel like she put me in a tough position, making me choose whose availability mattered more. I understand she really wants to be there, but I also think it was unfair of her to disregard everyone else's plans. I have no intention of changing the date, and honestly, I'm not planning to apologize because I don't think I did anything wrong. What should I do? Okay, first of all, this friend is completely out of line, and they only want to change things because it doesn't line up with their schedule, which, by the way, they had plenty of time to check and double check and really make sure this is something they can even go to. So for them to go behind your back and be like, okay, let's start a second poll on behalf of the soon-to-be bride. Like, that would set my hair on fire because I would be so pissed off if someone did that to me. There's no way on planet Earth I would ever be okay with that. And in my opinion, neither should you. And it's so funny to me that she's trying to be like, well, you could have privately talked to me about it, when she herself is not being private about any of this. She's literally going behind your back to try and reorganize your bachelorette trip. She's seriously being a hypocrite right now. So no, you're not the jerk, and in my opinion, I would almost be tempted to be like, look, you just can't show up anymore. I don't want you there, you've been really dishonest, and I just can't have that. Because her behavior, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for not allowing my parents to bring my siblings to my place, as they have a history of breaking things that they get their hands on? Because right now my parents are pissed and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I moved out as soon as I got into college, and from that I shared a college apartment and I moved straight into my own place. I got a nice downtown loft for myself in the same city I went to college, and this is about 7 hours from my hometown, so as you can imagine, I was barely home over the last 6 years. My dad really misses me a lot. He raised me as a single parent after my biological mom abandoned me postpartum, and my stepmom has also missed me a lot and was a fantastic parent to me throughout the years. I miss them both a lot, and we never had much conflict until now. Our main problem here is my siblings. I have a brother who's 10 years old and a sister who's 7. I had little to no contact with them really, but the times I do see them, they're a nightmare. For example, this year I stayed in my parents' home from Christmas Eve to New Year's, and in that short period of time, they managed to break my Nintendo Switch and shatter my phone screen, and both times neither object was left unattended near them. For my Switch, they swiped it from my room by going through all of my things while I was away, and then they broke it. And for my phone, they kicked a ball at me while I was texting, causing me to drop it, which shattered the screen. And this is just the most recent example of them being like this. My place is essentially one big open space. It's a big loft. The only door is to the bathroom, obviously, leaving the rest of this as one giant space. It's mostly occupied by my thousands of dollars worth of music gear, and it's more of an I live in my studio situation rather than I have a studio at home situation. I don't even own a bed. I sleep on a futon, so whenever they want to visit, I just tell them no, and that I will have to go to them instead. I only ever host at my place whenever my grandparents have my siblings, but this is starting to annoy them, and they wanted to know why. So I told them that the reason I don't host them at my place is because I don't want my siblings in here because they will break things, and I don't want to deal with that. Well, my parents are hurt, saying that my brother and sister should be more important than money and possessions, and that I moved away from home without making an effort to be in the lives of my siblings. They also say my siblings are hurt from me not putting any effort into being in their lives, especially since the family talks a lot about me near them. I love my parents, but I think they're being unreasonable, expecting me to allow my siblings here, where they will be surrounded by thousands of dollars of sensitive gear when they have a track record of breaking things. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Those kids are idiots, and there's no reason you should ever invite that into your home. They broke your phone and your Nintendo Switch. That's hundreds of dollars out the window. And with that in mind, just imagine what they could do with your music equipment. Seriously, this is unbelievable. And it's so funny to me that your parents are like, oh, come on, your family should be worth more than just the possessions you have. Love is more important than money. And it's like, oh, there it is. There's that red flag I was waiting for. They're literally excusing any future bad behavior from those kids instead of admitting that it's a problem and correcting them for when they do it. It sounds like these kids are super spoiled and they don't have anybody telling them no, which is only going to result in more bad behavior. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think you're smart for saying no, they can't show up. Because even if their feelings are hurt, their behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to deal with that in the slightest. My toxic in-laws sent her church friends to bother my daughters and myself, accusing all of us of terrible mistreatment while also saying that we're not good Christian women. So I decided to get some revenge by literally exposing them for their lies, forcing them to leave their church and walk a life of shame, as I successfully put them in their place in a way they will never forget ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so my daughters have a strained relationship with my ex-husband's parents. My ex passed away in an accident last year, and we've had some major family drama since then due to his cheating and him leaving 2 boys born with his affair partner orphaned. She also passed away. And part of the drama has been my ex-in-laws trying to get custody of my daughters and them also trying to live with us. The first one we're going to court over, and the second one will never happen. Where we live, there's a weekend market with fresh produce, eggs, meats, and other products straight from farmers. And this week was extra special since it was my youngest kid's birthday. Since her party is later in the month, I decided to give her a budget and set her loose on the market to get whatever she wanted. And this was mostly chocolate and other sweets. After an hour, I did start getting worried. And just before I called her, she called me. She was crying and saying that some weird people have her cornered. I ran to her with my oldest daughter to find 6 older women berating my daughter for being unchristian, for refusing to spend time with her paternal grandparents, or for wanting to be a good big sister to her poor orphan baby brothers. My daughters are the one that found out about my ex cheating and the babies, so they aren't really fond of the kids. It's a really bad situation and they are working with a therapist. I got between the group and my daughter, telling my eldest to go pay the stuff her sister had and to go to the car. Then I turned to the women, some who I knew from when we went to my ex-in-laws church, and I ripped them a new one. They told me I was worse for refusing to obey my ex-in-laws like a good Christian wife, and I nearly vomited when they said that. Eventually, the screaming turned too loud, and we were asked to leave the market. I met with my girls in the car, and the women followed me like a group of vultures. I managed to get in the car, and then I drove off. After my girls went to bed, I got online to talk to another member of that church that I'm in good terms with. I told him about what had happened, and after he apologized, he told me what was going on. My ex-mother-in-law posted this massive story in the church's Facebook group about how horrible my daughters and I are, how we are leaving them homeless and penniless, and how my daughters don't even talk to them. She also accused us of being the reason she lost her grandsons. The boys are now living with distant relatives of my ex-husband, and basically it was a sob story worthy of a Hallmark movie. And of course, they were getting all the love and support from the more extremist members of their church. This church and its members are a bit annoying, especially any topics related to LGBTQ, but they have a small saving grace. They are incredibly strict about cheating. It is a big no-no, be it from a husband or wife equally. Now you might be wondering, how did she get around blaming me about the affair children without exposing the cheating? Well, she claimed that the other woman was our surrogate since I was unable to have any more children, then said I didn't want the babies because they were boys, which is absolutely disgusting to be accused of. Well, I decided it was time to clean up this mess, and since I was mid-divorce when my ex died, I had all the evidence that I needed. And since the divorce wasn't completed, I don't have any legal ramification for releasing all the evidence. I was off the next day and I went to a print shop to get copies of all the delightful pictures of my ex cheating, his text conversations with his affair partner, the ones with his parents confessing to his cheating and getting support from them, my ex-in-laws bothering me about the divorce, and the final nail in the coffin, all of the emails and text messages from them bullying my daughters about their baby brothers. In one of them, they call my daughters a really awful name and telling them that it was their fault their father passed away since they told me about the affair and I began the divorce. And this one was literally 2 days after my ex died. I paid extra for all of this to be painted in beautiful high-quality paper. Then when I got home, I sat down for hours to make delightfully personalized binders. They even look like the little prayer song packets that the church give out for everyone to take and sing hymns. The first picture when opening the binders is one of my ex and his side woman making out in our living room. Their faces are easy to discern, and the girl looks nothing like me. She had different skin tones and different hair color. Underneath it, I said that this was a love story between my ex-husband and the girl he was having an affair with. Well, the gossip mill was quick and harsh. The names my ex and his affair partner got called in the Facebook group were so bad that the pastor himself had to get involved just to keep things relatively PG-13. People were angry at my ex-in-laws for the way they treated my daughters. But what made me laugh was that I was still in the wrong for the divorce, because apparently it's understandable that I failed on my duties after the shock, and I possibly will one day return to the light, unlike my cheating husband and his Jezebel. They used another word that I can't use here, but I think you can imagine what I really mean here. I then got 2 apology letters in the mail from my girl, as well as an invitation to join the church for support. Now, as for my ex-in-laws, they got shamed into leaving the church. My ex-mother-in-law made a post on her wall about how alienated she feels and how no one cares for the elderly anymore, how she wished her great son was still alive since he would have taken care of her and her husband. But I'm honestly glad I got one over on these people because they truly are the absolute worst. Oh man, this really pisses me off. This is so uncalled for. You mean to tell me 2 days after their dad died, your in-laws message your kids and say this is your fault? Like, what are you talking about? That is crazy to me. For starters, there's no justifiable reason any of these people should be messaging your your daughters, not to mention the fact that they're literally putting them down for something they had no control over. And it's also hilarious that they literally ignore the cheating part that literally caused all of this to really take place. Because at the end of the day, if he didn't cheat, then guess what? You probably wouldn't have gotten a divorce. So good for you for exposing these people for the liars that they are. Because I really feel that's exactly what you need to do when someone tries to lie about your name. Especially when you have evidence like this. Because the way these people treated you, in my opinion, was so unfair, and they deserve to be shut down in the way that they were. My entitled sister demanded that I drive her to see her friend on Christmas Day. But when I refused to do so, my sister tried to guilt trip me by drinking so much that she would no longer be able to drive, and thus try to force me to drive her to do exactly what she wanted. But even then, I stood my ground, resulting in my sister driving under the influence and eventually crashing and totaling her car. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister and I used to be neighbors, so to speak. I live in a sub-building rented from my parents, and she lived in a fifth-wheel trailer with her kids next to it. On Christmas Day about 3 years ago, she and her visiting ex-husband, along with their kids, were outside having fun in the snow. I went outside to hang out with them, and at a random point, my sister suddenly asked me to take her later on to meet a friend of hers because they were alone with no family on Christmas. Now, I didn't want to do this because not only did I not know this person, but I know my sister very well. If I were to have been her ride, I would have been stuck waiting there for hours. When she wanted me to do this sort of thing for her back then, it was because she wanted to drink and couldn't have alcohol if she drove herself. Also, it was snowing and the roads were covered, and I really just didn't want to risk it. For reference, my truck is a 98 RWD Ford F-150, and I had no chains for the tires. It's a heavy steel beast that could slip off the road very easily, and I tend to call it a brick with wheels. I relayed all of that information to my sister, but she still got angry at me for not agreeing, and she couldn't mentally understand that her four-wheel drive car would be better on the snow-covered country roads than my truck. But I couldn't drive her with her car anyways, because it was a manual shift and I drive automatic. She kept acting like my vehicle would do better because it's a truck, but I explained that if it were a 4x4 then yes, but it's rear-wheel drive, which means it's both heavy and it's got no front power to help keep traction on the road, so it would slip and slide, and likely would not even be able to make it up the hill. Her car was smaller, lighter, she had chains and traction control. I also have very little experience driving on icy and snowy roads. Well, she basically scoffed and walked away, and I really hoped that she would let it go, but she didn't. After having fun in the snow, we went over to our parents' house and celebrated Christmas Day. Now, my sister didn't speak of wanting me to drive her to see that guy, and I don't know why, but maybe it was because it would be in front of our parents, because she knew that they would tell her to leave me alone. But I did get an occasional dirty look from her if we made eye contact. And when our parents weren't in earshot, she would make a jab at me about how she would do something like that for me if I needed it, and I should be doing it for her. But I did not relent. My sister then started drinking, probably in hopes that she could try and guilt trip me by saying that she was too inebriated to drive. But even still, I didn't relent. As she drank more, her glares towards me kept getting nastier. In fact, that's what she used to do to get her way from me. She would act increasingly bitter and treat me like the bad guy until I caved. But not this time. Anything related to vehicle danger, I have a pretty shiny spine about it. So I just let her glare at me. By the time the party was almost over, she'd obviously realized her spite gambit didn't work. So she hopped her drunk self into her car and took off, even though she was drunk and shouldn't have been driving. She had gotten a DUI a couple of years prior, so she absolutely knew better. But she didn't care. Thankfully, her ex took their kids to his house for a few days, so I wasn't worried about my nephews. I told my parents what my sister had tried to make me do, and they were pretty angry about it too, and backed me up on my decision to say no. Not only because the roads were treacherous, but because it really wasn't fair to me to keep driving her places just so she could get drunk. If she really had so much pity for this guy to visit him for a couple of hours on Christmas, then she could have done it sober. As I said before, I didn't know this guy that she wanted to visit, and my sister just wanted an excuse to go drink with a friend. And if I had taken her, I would have been waiting around for her for hours. My sister has no sense of being on someone else's time either, especially when she's drinking. The phrase time to go meant absolutely nothing to her. She could almost never stick to a deadline if alcohol was involved, so I'm glad I don't have to deal with her anymore. Later on, I was taking a nap when I was awoken to what sounded like my sister's car alarm. I looked out the window and I saw a large truck I didn't recognize leaving her driveway. I went over and I knocked on her door to ask what was going on, and she was absolutely in some kind of mood, and I doubt she was able to drink for the hours she was away with what I learned later. I asked her whose truck I saw, and she angrily told me it was her lonely friend that I didn't take her to see, and he drove home behind her to make sure that she didn't crash. I asked if the roads were really that bad, and she confirmed that they were. So I said that it was a good thing I didn't try to drive my truck on them either then. She then passive-aggressively said, yeah, all before spitefully bidding me goodnight for the evening and slamming the door in my face. Well, fast forward and I learned the next day that my sister had gone off the road and crashed. She messed up her passenger side fender pretty bad, and she had to call the guy she was going to see to come pull her out of the ditch. And then he had to help her get home once she calmed down. So she got a fair dose of karma that day. I felt most sorry for her car though. I mean, she absolutely destroyed that car in the few years that she owned it. That fender was just one of many things to get broken because of her reckless driving. Thankfully, my sister doesn't live here anymore, and we evicted her toxic self in late 2023, and now she's extremely bitter that we won't help her anymore. Wow, your sister is super entitled, and honestly, I love the fact that karma came right back to bite her in the butt. She really tried to play the gambit of like, oh, I'm gonna get so drunk that you have no choice but to drive me where I want. And that is like crazy to me. Like, that's so spiteful and immature, and I just don't blame you for standing your ground and being like, no, I'm absolutely not gonna drive you. Because you're right, you would have been there forever. You would have been on the hook probably until 2 o'clock in the morning, if not later. Like, who's to say she wouldn't just hold you there indefinitely while she gets wasted with some guy that she probably doesn't even know that well. So good for you for standing your ground, because honestly, this probably saved your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister is literally the bane of my existence, as she has constantly caused problems in my life and my parents' life for as long as I can remember. And now this situation has escalated to a point where quite literally I don't feel comfortable being around her in the slightest, because her life choices and her attitude are truly affecting everybody around us. Here's what happened. So this story is a long one, and I just want to say ahead of time that there's a lot of details that I need to cover. Okay, to start things off, after my sister was evicted from the family property, she went to live with her creepy best friend, who eventually kicked her out. And then after that, she started living with her awful boyfriend, who was also her dealer, if you know what I mean. This guy was messed up in the head and a rage monster, and he was also really smart and fixed up and resold cars despite legally being on disability. The first time I met this guy, I could tell how two-faced he was and wanted to be as far away from him as possible. Then one day my sister called me crying. Apparently her boyfriend had stranded her and her puppy in an unlivable camper trailer on the side of the road, and he was holding the other two of her dogs, her cat, and the title to a car that she had bought from him hostage. He did leave her with another car, but it was an awful Volvo that didn't even run, and the guy had busted out the rear window with a hammer in one of his fits of rage. My sister called the police, but the cops told her that he can break his own stuff, and there wasn't much of anything they could do. Now, I came running to help my sister after she called, despite all the years that she had made me utterly miserable. Her boyfriend's parents came running to help too, because even they know that he is insane, and together we managed to load all of my sister's stuff into my truck. But my sister has no sense of getting rid of unneeded things when forced to downsize, and my F-150 barely contained it all. Then we had to go back to her boyfriend's apartment to get back her pets and car title. Well, this is when we find out that this guy had lockpicked my sister's safe and stole the car title right out of it. And worst of all, he repeatedly denied it with this awful grin on his face. I mean, he was gaslighting everybody. He and my sister spent like an hour shouting back and forth at each other, and it was dark by the time it was all over. My sister threatened to call the cops on him unless he returned the car title, and he kept denying having it. But my sister knew just enough about his life to screw him over if she did call the cops. And when my sister didn't back down after all of that, the guy just stormed up to his apartment because he couldn't gaslight her into leaving. Then, when my sister wasn't looking, he ran back out and threw an envelope through the window of my truck and onto the passenger seat. And then he ran back in. And wouldn't you guess it, it was the title to the car. If I had not seen the guy do it, I just know he would have tried to gaslight my sister and say it was there the whole time. Now, I have no idea if she confronted him about it later, because I never got the chance to find out. My sister then had to go stay with her boyfriend's sister, who was a single mom with 2 kids and another one on the way. I had to drive my sister to go see her, and my sister barely looked up from her phone to give me directions unless I made her. And then she would get irritated with me and tell me that she was busy. Just about every new turn I needed to make, she would tell me almost at the last second. After unloading all of my sister's stuff, she begged me to take her cat home with me, which I did. And that cat was so happy to come back here because he was raised out here. As soon as I pulled in the driveway, he could smell where we were from inside his carrier and went from meowing with worry to purring intensely. And as soon as I let him out, he ran around the yard happily. Well, ever since then, I've had this cat chipped and registered in my name because my sister would just take him back to living with a dealer if I allowed her to take him back. My sister spent barely 2 days living with her boyfriend's sister, and the two of them were at each other's throats because my sister is not only impossible to live with, but she also let her dogs pee and go to the bathroom all over the bedroom floor and didn't clean up any of it. In fact, I had to clean it all up when I got there. My sister's boyfriend managed to get that crappy Volvo running for her, only to then grab her by the hair, and she had to floor it to get away from him, which resulted in a chunk of her hair getting ripped out. I then met up with her and we packed my truck in that Volvo full of her junk, and then spent all day driving around with her to multiple places while she tried to find someone to take her in. But the problem is that since she's an entitled narcissist, she's literally burned through 98% of the friend bridges that she had. In fact, very few people even responded to her. She even dragged me to a produce farm where they had workers living out of campers, and even they weren't willing to take her in either. And in all this time, I was the only one walking all three of my sister's pugs. She barely got out of her car to do anything, let alone get off of her phone. And even when her phone went dead and had to charge, she simply did not help. If I even got mad at her, she would start crying and act pathetic because of her situation. And then she came up with her dumbest excuse yet. She claims she has split personalities, and that's why she's so mean to people for no reason. I didn't even bother to correct her because she just doesn't listen. She was diagnosed bipolar as a teenager and mentally blocked it out, and she is more than likely a narcissist as well. I've known her my entire life, and she's always been cruel and self-important. Add in being an alcoholic and an addict on top of that, and she's completely lost her mind, just not in the way that she thinks. She doesn't have any symptoms one would expect of split personality disorder. She doesn't identify by two different names or as two different people, and she doesn't get any memory loss from personality shifts. She just convinced herself that she's got split personalities for sympathy, and I really wish I was making this stuff up, but it all really happened. After following my sister from place to place for several hours on end, with her finding nowhere to live, we ended up parked in front of a convenience store at the beginning of the road home, or at least home for me, but not for her anymore. She's not allowed on the property at all. We spent hours parked there, while my sister kept calling and messaging people looking for someone to take her in, but no one did. What's worse is that I found out that day was the last day of her cell phone plan before it was cut off for non-payment, because her cell phone plan was through her piece of garbage boyfriend, and after that she could only message me through social media using Wi-Fi. During the hours we parked in front of this convenience store, my sister drove me ever more crazy with her entitlement. For example, at one point I asked her if she was thirsty and she said yes. So I went into the store and I bought her a big bottle of cold water. And not only was she ungrateful for it, she was mad that it wasn't beer. And then she wanted me to go back in and buy her a beer. I told her I would not facilitate her drinking and driving. But when I said that, she began berating me and then angrily ignored me for a while. In fact, she didn't even drink the water that I gave her. On a hunch, I asked her to pop the hood of the Volvo that she was driving because the engine sounded a little bit rough. I then checked the oil and guess what? There was like none in the engine. So I googled the type of oil that the car needed and I went back into the convenience store. It was $8 for a quart of oil and it was literally only used so that the Volvo's engine wouldn't seize up. Then I asked my sister how much gas she had, and not only was the car on E, the fuel warning light had come on. And at this point I was furious because literally she waited until then to finally tell me, because now I have no choice but to buy her gas. And right as I'm getting gas, she says to me, "My car only takes premium fuel." And I'm thinking to myself, oh, fantastic. I mean, you just can't make this crap up. I had to pull out $20 from my wallet and I told her to go get gas at the nearby station. And then I told her that the $20 was for gas only, no beer. She then started crying and actually said, "Can I just get one beer?" And I said, "No." She then tried to beg me, but I was adamant. This is my money, so it's only being used for gas. Now, I really figured that she would get beer anyways, but for once she actually did as she was told. She went and got the gas and then she came back. And then she acted nice, but was still clearly upset because I still would not buy her the alcohol. I then ended up calling our parents on speaker to give them an update on the situation, and our mother was worried out of her mind, but our parents still refused to let my sister come back home after everything she had put us and her kids through, which, trust me, is a long story in and of itself. And I just know that if we allowed my sister to come back, even just for a little while, she would plant herself in my camper trailer and refuse to leave. So I was upfront in advance with my parents that my sister would not be staying in my camper. Now, my mother did admit to wanting to suggest it if it was just for one night or two, but realized I had had enough of my sister and didn't ask me. While on the phone, our mother started talking about how she'd get a baseball bat if my sister's boyfriend laid a finger on her again, and also started talking about getting my sister a motel room for the night. Meanwhile, my sister was losing her mind, having a tantrum in her car because she just has to make our mother the villain in her life. My sister literally can't function unless she has someone to blame and hate. I mean, that's how she's always been. again. During her tantrum, she was flailing her arms around and making incoherent noises. I kept trying to shush her without cluing our mother in, and my sister gave me a glare and rolled up her window to sit and pout. Well, my sister kept refusing to let our mother book her a motel room, and she started yelling that there's no way a motel would let her bring in 3 dogs, and that our mother freaking knows it. And no, our mother didn't know it. She was literally just trying to help. By this point, it was getting dark, and I needed to go home. I called my parents back, and they okayed me to bring my sister's junk home with me for the moment, but it all had to stay in my truck. Well, I had no choice but to leave my sister to spend the night in her awful car. So my sister started furiously digging through the back of my truck, looking for her dog food, but she couldn't find it. I then had to go back into the convenience store and buy her a $12 bag of dog food. And after giving her the dog food, that's when she suddenly said, "She's going to pass away, you know." And when she said that, I'm like, what are you talking about? She then told me that our mother was going to pass away. She then went on a rant about how her previous boyfriend passed away after cheating on her, and the woman he had cheated on her with also passed away soon after in something unrelated. My sister said that everyone who crosses her passes away, and our mother would be next. Well, needless to say, I was mortified and I got out of there. I then told my parents exactly what my sister said, and they were mortified too. As for my sister, she drove that crappy Volvo all the way back to her awful boyfriend's apartment and just spent the night parked there. Her boyfriend started scaring the crap out of her by getting on his motorcycle and circling the apartment complex, eyeing her like a vulture. And then my sister messaged me through social media in the middle of the night and said her boyfriend was coming for her. He literally said he was going to take her out earlier if he went back to prison. My sister then apparently heard shots fired and was freaking out and texting me like it was her last moment on earth. Now, I was ready to call the cops, but she refused to let me and said that they were completely useless. Then she texted me close to the morning and said that it was all fine and that what she was hearing was something unrelated. Then her boyfriend, just to be a jerk, decided to stab one of her Volvo tires, meaning that she had to put a spare on it just to make it work. Our mother then got in touch with her and got her that motel room for the night. And unsurprisingly, my sister wasn't very appreciative, and the motel treated my mother like garbage over the phone because they didn't want to book the room without holding her credit card. They made her jump through Lord knows how many hoops just to book the room. And guess what? My sister spent the night in the motel with her 3 dogs in that room. So I guess motels do allow it, but you can bet that she definitely did not apologize. And then the following day when my sister had to leave the motel, she went right back to her awful boyfriend's place and then messaged me just to bring her stuff back there. All that crap for the past few days just to end up back where she freaking started. I was pissed and my parents were as well. I drove back to my boyfriend's apartment in a fury, all the while practicing a speech in my head to tell my sister exactly what I thought of her. When I got there, my 40-year-old sister was dressed like a teenager in tiny shorts. She had a tube top on and her hair was tied in a sideways ponytail, which by the way did not flatter her at all because her face has aged badly from all the substances she's taken, if you know what I mean. She looked like she'd be on an episode of Cops any day now. Her boyfriend was there constantly, and I didn't want to risk pissing off this nutcase by yelling at my sister in front of him. So I just unloaded all of her stuff as fast as I could. Then I gave her some money because I knew she had zilch to her name, and I told her not to contact us until she goes to rehab or something, and then I turned to walk away. The last word I heard out of her mouth that day was her screaming, "Rehab?" literally just as I was leaving. She sounded like she honestly didn't get why I'd say that. I drove off to get some yellow curry from one of my favorite restaurants, and my sister started messaging me and asking me to please not ignore her. And then she actually said she didn't know she was such a burden on everyone. And it's like, seriously, she knows. She has always known that fact. She just has massive denial and main character syndrome. I blocked her that day and it was a massive relief to do so. She called our parents later and our mother told her she probably lost me forever. The only time I even let her talk to me as of late was because she wanted her mail. Now, my sister still came back and weaseled a bit more money out of us though, and I went out to eat with my parents and my sister showed up at the restaurant in tears. She got $50 from our dad and $20 from me. And at this point, we're pretty sure that all that money was going into her habits. Because before we kicked her out, she was borrowing from me when she already owed me hundreds and owes our parents and grandparents thousands. She then gave me the classic line that all addicts give out, "You know I'm good to pay you back." She wasn't even feeding her children, let alone paying her mortgage. Her ex-husband soon took the kids and refused to let her see them as long as her awful boyfriend was around. Then her boyfriend did end up going back to prison, and my sister has somehow been living off his disability money and gotten an apartment of her own. She also started dumpster diving and apparently found jewelry that she had sold to a pawn shop. Well, to top all of this off, my sister showed up at my house recently wanting her cat back, with the both of us getting into a shouting match and me kicking her off of the property. And just days after that, I had the cat chipped and I registered in my name. But honestly, I'm so done with my entitled sister because the way she treats my family is unacceptable. Wow, your sister is not a good person. I think I can confidently say that. She has screwed you guys out of money and time. She constantly is using everybody around you. And in my opinion, she is not grateful for any of the help that she's received. And this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, someone's showing me exactly who they are. And I think in this case, I really should believe them. Like your sister literally was like, oh, mom's gonna pass away next. All because mom was trying to like what? Get her a motel room, take care of her and help her out in some kind of way? Like what is going on? That is so crazy in my opinion. So seriously, hopefully you and your family can have a good life without your sister involved. Because based on what you described, your sister sounds like an absolute nightmare to be related to. An entitled psycho teacher decides to fail me in my class, all because she doesn't like the work that I created for the class. So I decided to get some revenge by not only making her life a living nightmare as my teacher, but also for ruining her career in the process. Here's what happened. Okay, so this occurred way back in my junior year of high school. I was in a computer class that was very general, where we learned how to type, but also got a little familiar with stuff like Adobe Photoshop and Music Studio. The teacher who normally taught the class had a baby prior to the semester that I took the class, so a substitute teacher covered her entire maternity leave. Now, this substitute was an absolute jerk. The fun and entertainment I got from the original teacher's typing class that I had taken the semester before was now replaced by an evil woman who expected us to be professionals at programs we had only just learned about. I mean, nobody in the class had higher than a B average. She dumped on my first Photoshop assignment because she didn't like the subject matter. For reference, it was a mech robot with a Gundam-inspired energy sword that I drew and colored by hand, taking me nearly a month to complete. I used Photoshop to clean up some of the rough edges and make it look even more realistic, which, if I'm being completely honest, is a feat that I should have been awarded high marks for. But because she hated the subject matter, I got a D+ on that assignment. The next week, we started our segment on Music Studio. Her assignment was to create a music clip that sounded weird or funny. I found a synthwave in the program labeled Final Crash, and I played it to myself. A descending crescendo, followed by a final beat in an upbeat chord. Using the software, I created a loop of this sound clip and reversed it, playing the sound forward and reversed in repeating patterns for about 15 seconds. Now, my fellow students found the resulting music to be hilarious, but the teacher absolutely hated it, even going into dry heaves at the sound of it. She gave me a 0 on the assignment and then threatened me with detention if I ever played the sound again. I was already on the brink of failing my class prior to this because of the way she was grading my work, so this was the perfect reason for me to take my revenge. Now, I didn't mind a few detentions from a teacher I disliked if it meant making her life a living nightmare for a few weeks, as just a taste of what she had put me through. Now, a friend of mine worked in IT for the school as part of his aspirations to get a computer science degree. I gave him the offending sound clip and he notified the teacher that he needed to perform an update on her computer during her lunch break. Now, my class was after her lunch, so I got to see my revenge in all of its glory. My friend then went into the sound files of her computer and replaced all of her notification sounds with a 3-second piece of this sound clip. Every time she received an email, instant message, or any other warning from her computer, this sound would play at nearly maximum volume. The added bonus being that to prevent students from tampering with students' computers, they needed to input an IT password to access the control panels and turn it off. And this was an IT password that they didn't share with substitute teachers, all because of access to grading and transcripts. Well, when this happened, the substitute teacher had a complete meltdown, literally only after 2 emails from IT about the computer update. At this point, she sent me to the office and actually tried to have me expelled because of the sound, but our principal laughed her out of the office. The substitute teacher then unplugged her computer and instead took emails and instant messages on her phone for the entire duration of the final 2 weeks of class. In fact, the other students in my class used to play the sound clip from their computers just to annoy her. We even managed to get the sound clip played during the morning announcements, which I can only imagine made her throw things at the television. When the original teacher returned from her maternity leave at the beginning of my senior year, she changed my grade in the previous semester's class from a D to an A+ after reviewing my assignments, which meant that my revenge was achieved. And also, as icing on the cake, this substitute was asked not to return to my school district as a substitute, quite literally for the rest of her teaching career. Man, I love this story because seriously, that is so messed up. She literally was just gonna fail you because she didn't like what you were creating. And I can understand if you did it wrong and she didn't like it, but just to not like it straight up and be like, that's why I'm gonna fail you. It's like, come on, how is that fair? But thankfully, you had a teacher that had your back and made everything right by giving you the grade that you deserved, because that substitute teacher absolutely was out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. choice. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my best friend with her wedding simply because she didn't make me a bridesmaid? Because now I'm being asked to do all this stuff that I honestly don't want to do if I'm not in her bridal party. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my best friend and I, who I will call May, have been close friends since middle school. We've talked about being in each other's weddings, so when she got engaged last year, I assumed I would be a bridesmaid. Well, she recently asked me to help with the wedding planning, but when she showed me the list of her bridal party, I wasn't on the list. I asked why, and she got awkward and said that she had to make some choices. The party included her sister, her fiance's sister, and a few newer friends that she's known for a couple of years. And she says that she wanted a small party. Now, I did not want to make it a big deal, so I congratulated her, and I figured I'd still be a guest. But then she started asking me for a lot of help. Things like dress shopping, DIY decorations, venue hunting, making party favors, etc. I finally told her, hey, I love you, but I still feel weird doing all of this when I'm not even a bridesmaid. She then got angry with me and said that she thought that I'd still want to be involved because we're best friends. I told her I would still be at the wedding, but I wasn't going to do all this extra work when she didn't even consider me close enough to be at her bridal party. And now she and some of our mutual friends are giving me the cold shoulder, saying I'm being petty and making the wedding about me, but I am not going to be doing bridesmaid level work if I'm not going to be one. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, you're definitely not the jerk here because your friend's being a complete idiot. She literally wants free labor out of you because either her bridesmaids don't want to do the work or she doesn't want to ask them. And this is not about you being her best friend or anything like that. If you really did mean that much to her, you'd be a bridesmaid after all. In my opinion, this has everything to do with the fact that she just can't find anyone to help her out, and she's using you as some way of getting all this stuff done because it's pretty obvious that no one else is stepping up in her party at all. So no, you're not the jerk because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for wanting to move my pregnant friend out of my house after it's become abundantly clear that she is absolutely taking advantage of me? Here's what happened. Okay, so I had a friend move in with me while I was away. She decided to get pregnant, but she has no job interviews lined up, literally nothing. She has no car seat for the baby, and no baby items. When she told me she was pregnant, she said, "Oh, we're both having boys, we can share." I then laughed and I told her, I have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with a squatter who refuses to get a job, and I'm not sharing any of my baby's new stuff, but I will grab some things from a store called Savers. She then called me the biggest jerk there was and acted like we were supposed to be close, but we are not that close. We have a regular friendship, but when she fell on hard times, I wanted to help as much as I could because I understand that life is hard. The deal was that she would get a job and hustle until she had enough money to move out. I told her that she didn't need to pay rent so that she could save for her own place, but she needed to help clean up. I mean, I am a neat freak and I'm always cleaning something up. Well, today I asked her how much she had saved, and she said to me, I've saved $0. I spent $7,000 today on everything I needed. And I was shocked. I asked her, wait, $7,000 on what? Nothing for a newborn costs that much. Well, she had bought all luxury baby items. Then she told me, if you hadn't been such a selfish jerk and shared everything, I wouldn't have resorted to this. At that point, I told her she had 30 days to get her situation together. Now she's saying I'm a piece of garbage for kicking a pregnant woman out. I told her to return the luxury items and get affordable things instead. There's even a community baby shower where we live that happens every 2 months, but she refused. I then told her that if she had focused on getting a place before having a baby, she would be stable enough to afford what she needed. But now she's calling me a jerk and saying that I'm an untrue friend. I then wrote down an itemized list of everything I pay for and everything I've helped her with, and she got mad at me for keeping track. I told her, this is just your list. If I add my kids, it's even more. And that's when she finally realized she doesn't know how she's going to manage as a single mom. So I told her again, return the expensive things, get baby items that fit her budget, and then she can stay. But she still refuses and insists that I'm a jerk for kicking her and her newborn out. I totally get that she may be taking advantage of me, but I do feel guilty about the situation, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for telling her that she's got to get her life together, and I think part of that is her moving out of your house. Seriously, this lady has no job, she has no job prospects, she barely has any money, and so she goes to you pretending like you're gonna help take care of her baby? Like seriously, what's going on right now? That is insane. She needs to get a grip and get a job, not mooch off of you and expect you to pick up the slack for her. So no, you're not the jerk for wanting her to go, because honestly, I would feel the exact same way. Today, I messed up by giving out a favor to people that were not my friends, because as a result, I found myself incredibly frustrated, realizing that this was a mistake from the very beginning. Here's what happened. So this happened when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I live in Philadelphia, and my company gave us the day off if we planned to attend the parade. My plan was to see the parade with my roommate, hop hop in the car with her after, and then drop her at her mom's in New Jersey on my way to my mom's in New York. The day before the parade, I was in a Teams meeting with some coworkers when this girl, who we will call Juniper for the sake of the story, mentioned she wanted to go to the parade, but would have to travel from Jersey to Philadelphia and then from Philly to New York to do so. She and I are friendly but not friends, but for some reason I decided to extend a favor, and I mentioned to her that depending where in New York, I could just drop her off on my way to my mom's since I was planning on going there anyways. I also mentioned we would just have to make a quick pit stop in Jersey to drop my roommate off as well. I asked her where she would need to be dropped off, and she tells me Times Square. Now this is technically on my way, but I'm only going past the city, not through it, not to mention all the tolls. And she tells me this without offering to help pay for any of the tolls. So I tell her that the best I could do is drop them at a train station close to the outskirts. She told me that would be awesome and that she would let me know if she ended up attending the parade or not. The next morning of the parade, I see a message from her asking if this other girl, we'll call her Emily, could also come along. Now I know of this girl and I have met her a few times, but I don't work with her directly. However, I know she and Juniper are really good friends. So I tell Juniper that if she and Emily are going to the same place, then it's fine. A couple hours later, she messages me again. They're not coming to the parade, but coincidentally, the hotel they are both staying at is only 30 minutes from where I'm dropping off my roommate, and then asked me if I wouldn't mind picking them up from there. I definitely told her that wasn't going to work for me and that I was sorry she was going to miss the parade. But you know what? I definitely learned my lesson. Even if we're friendly coworkers, don't extend favors to people who aren't your friends, because chances are it's not going to go well. Oh wow, they really took advantage of you. That seriously sucks. I honestly can't stand when people do something like this. They know that you have plans and they're like, oh, can I tag along? And then suddenly your plans get morphed into some other version of it that you did not want to do. So despite that, I love the fact that you basically said, no, I'm not going to drive out of my way, and yes, you're going to have to figure out something else. Because what they were asking is so ridiculous, and in my opinion, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my coworker a ride to work after he literally has been late to my car every morning consistently? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend are both 19-year-old males, and we also happen to work together. In fact, I got him a job at the small company where I worked. When I first recommended him to my boss, it was because I thought it would be a temporary position over the Christmas rush. But guess what? It wasn't. My main problem comes from the fact that he doesn't have a driver's license. I was okay with the idea of driving him to and from work for a couple of months, even though he has a habit of always being a couple minutes late. And this isn't a huge deal at our company because we get paid hourly for a job that doesn't have a set time frame. Lately though, he's been consistently at least 10 minutes late. And while this isn't a big deal for the boss, I hate sitting in my car in front of his house for that long. I like to get work over with as soon as possible. And while those 10 minutes aren't going to change my life, I would rather get 10 extra minutes at home than sitting in a car. But today I made up my mind that I wasn't going to ignore his tardiness. I texted him 20 minutes beforehand to ask if he would be ready in 20 minutes. He said yes, and I knew it was probably a slight exaggeration, so I took my time leaving the house. He literally got a good extra 5 to 10 minute start. But then when I got to his house, I texted him to tell him I was there, and lo and behold, I got no reply. Fast forward 10 minutes later and he finally appears. Usually he starts telling me about his day and I kind of get over my anger, but this time I stuck to what I told myself and I let him know that I didn't want to drive him anymore. I wasn't rude, I didn't yell or anything like that. I just said, I'm sorry, I don't want to drive you to work anymore because you're always late. He then started saying that it wasn't his fault and that he was busy. In the conversation, I also mentioned that things would be different if he wasn't old enough to get a license and his parents hadn't promised him a car as soon as he got the driver's license. He then told me that every time I brought up the driver's license thing, it only stresses him out. He kind of phrased it like he thought I brought it up out of concern, which I do every once in a while, but this time it was because he's making me late when he could very well get a driver's license and drive himself. After I made my feelings known, the car ride was quiet. Then at work and on the way home, it was also quiet. So basically, I think he got mad about the fact that I was done waiting around for him, and I really don't think I'm in the wrong, but maybe I'm missing something here. What should I do? Oh man, this is a really annoying story. In my opinion, you did the right thing because this guy did not respect you. This guy is 10 minutes late every single time you pick him up. He doesn't respect you or your time, and he's always coming up with some kind of excuse. Also, this guy could easily get a license, like come on. And sure, he's probably stressed out about it, but this is the result of him being lazy and not getting it done. And yes, I really do think he's being lazy and he's just making up excuses. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to give him a ride, because if I was in your shoes, I would be taking the same route, because his behavior, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Today, I messed up by making fun of my dad's past relationships, as he has had a lot. But because of this harmless joke, I find out that my mom cheated on my dad way back in the day, and now I literally am looking at everything in my life way differently. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad recently got a girlfriend, and it seems like it's going well. I mean, he's been in way too many relationships for me to even keep count. With girlfriends, with boyfriends, I mean so many people. I was on a call with him today, I thought about him, and I decided it would be nice, and I made a joke that essentially pointed out just that. It was something to the effect of, what is this, your 20th? The thing is, my dad is a serial gossiper. Despite me being his son, he will tell me all about his current relationships all the time. But I will emphasize current relationships because apparently I didn't know about the absolute massive ton of relationships that ended badly for him. He started talking about why he's blown through so many partners, ignoring red flags, them cheating, stuff like that. Then he suddenly explained that when I was really young, he had a boyfriend that he stuck with for a while. They seemed perfect for each other, but then the boyfriend suddenly passed away in a car accident. At that point, he started getting really emotional, still going through all of his relationships in a random order. When he got to my mom, who I love a lot, he said that she actually cheated on him with some dude he was in a band with in his teenage years, and it made him feel like chopped liver. Now, I had no idea this apparently happened, and I'm pretty sensitive about cheating since my boyfriend of 4 years cheated on me. So I made him pause here and I made him explain further. After we ended our call, I called my mom up. I chatted normally for a bit before I finally brought up that my dad told me she cheated on him. And you know what? She said it was true, but he made a promise to not tell me, so she was very pissed off about that. She explained that the reason was because my dad was pretty awful to her after he found out that she was pregnant, and she just couldn't build the confidence to break up with him because somehow he'd always find ways to avoid the topic. Plus, this was the father of her child. It put more pressure on them to stay together. She said she knew it was wrong, but this was about 20 years ago, and she wouldn't be so hesitant to break up with a guy now. Anyways, I just sat here absorbing my parents' intense relationship drama and likely made the two of them mad at each other. I feel drained and it's still the morning, and I also don't know if me disregarding the fact that my mom cheated is me being a hypocrite when I usually despise cheating. So at this point, I'm honestly feeling so confused and I don't know what to do. Oh man, I can only imagine how much this sucks because you just learned a lot more information than you wanted to know. Like here you were just trying to have a good conversation with your dad and you make a silly joke and then suddenly you're like, oh wow, my mom's a cheater, this is awful. So yeah, this definitely is a sketchy situation and hopefully this all blows over in some kind of way because I can imagine this is going to be awkward for quite a while. An entitled client demands that I delete all their files on record as they are so unsatisfied with a sign that they literally approve for their business. So I decided to maliciously comply by deleting everything I had on file relating to their business, putting them in a situation that they truly regretted. Here's what happened. Quite a few years ago, I was the senior graphic designer for a sign shop. This one customer was always a pain in the butt, but you get that and you try to keep the returning client happy. One day, the owner sent over a design for a new sign to go on a scoreboard as part of their sponsorship package at a local sports oval. And this meant we invoiced the football club and not them. Now, their logo is maroon and she wanted a red background when usually it was white. I told her that I wouldn't recommend it because for one, you would not be able to read it from a distance, like across the other side of the oval, because the colors were too close, and secondly, it would look awful, even though I said that last part a bit more professionally. Usually, we would also just make the logo all white, but she insisted that she wanted the maroon one. Well, the sign was made and installed, and because I've been doing this job for a long time, it kinda looked like crap. But oh well, we were paid, the client was happy, and then we moved on. A few months later, she asked for another sign to replace it, as apparently it is hard to see from a distance, and her husband, also working in the business, is not happy. And it's like, yeah, go figure, lady. She also says that we should do it free of charge because it looks like crap and that it's my fault. And remember, the football club had paid for it. So I politely tell her no because guess what? She approved the design. So her husband writes me a harsh email about how I should never have made it in that color and that it's not in line with his company's brand, stating that I need to replace it. I got the feeling that his wife was blaming me, so I sent him the receipts, namely the whole email chain with my recommendations, as well as her insistence and approvals. I said no, I will not be replacing it free of charge. Shortly afterwards, the wife writes me another email saying they will never use my business again, demanding that I delete all their files right now. And I think to myself, thank you and done. Hallelujah, I will never have to deal with her ever again. Although deep down I knew that would not be the case, as we also sponsored that sports oval. The club used us for all their signs and printing, and I knew that I would need to have their logo for something sometime in the future, but despite all of that and knowing this, I decided to maliciously comply, deleting everything as they requested, because I knew that this would blow up in their face in a hilarious fashion. Now, we just can't use a JPEG or PNG file. We need special files that I had to set up for their business, all on brand to print consistently at the right color, like years worth of files files, adverts, and signs. This means it can be very easy for us to just slot in pre-designed work when needed, literally a 5-minute job in some cases. Well, fast forward maybe a few months later, and the football club needs their program printed, with all the sponsors included. And it was at this moment my time came along to finally shine. I was truly so happy. I mentioned to my contact that I need this business logo and advert, and he said that he will get them to send it through. Now, I'm not sure why, but they never sent it through to me on time. It was so strange. So I sent printing proofs without this particular logo or advert added, and mentioned I still didn't have it, and if they wanted this printed in time, I needed it as soon as possible. I was kind of hoping that I could print it without them in it, but the football club was diligent, and they wanted them in. I then got a short message from this business saying to just add it in their usual advert, and it's like, what do you mean? The one you told me to delete a few months back? Sorry, I don't have it. You need to send me a print-ready file in this size. Well, fast forward about 2 weeks later, and I finally got the ad to put in, and they mentioned to keep it on file for future designs. In fact, I heard that they had to pay someone to design up something for them. They also got someone else to make up a new sign to replace the crap one. In fact, they would have had to pay for that too, as the club never ordered one through us. And now, anytime I drive past their business, I can't help but stick my finger up and just laugh at these people, because these guys were truly absolute morons. Yeah, these people truly are super stupid. First of all, they completely ruin their design, and then they sit there and try to be like, oh man, I can't believe it. This sign sucks. You need to change it for free. And it's like, no dude, I literally tried to change it last time, and you people reprimanded me. Why should I have to go through that again just to get your approval on something you shouldn't have done? And I don't blame the original poster. They literally got paid and everybody was happy at the end of the day, especially that idiot who was like, just do it exactly how I say. Like, hang on a second, this is not anybody's fault except for her. And now she's seriously trying to shift the blame on you? Like, no, I don't think so. So yeah, I love the way you got back at these people, because their attitude was absolutely uncalled for. An entitled DoorDasher decides to mouth off at restaurant staff, causing the manager to drop the hammer on this idiot in a way that I'm sure he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. So I'm in between jobs after getting laid off in January, and I DoorDash to try and make ends meet during the job search. I know there can be a bit of a rivalry between Dashers and restaurant staff, and that some Dashers can be quite rude. I hate that. They make us all look bad, and they feed into a stereotype that I don't particularly appreciate or even fall into. I've also worked in fast food, fast casual, and casual dining, so I'm pretty sympathetic to staff stressors. Everyone is busy and stressed out, and we could all use a little more grace. And bear with me because this will be relevant. The other day, I picked up an order at a nicer sit-down restaurant, and I really like this place. The staff are great and the food is good, so it's pretty popular. Plus, it costs enough that orders tend to tip really well. While I was paying for my order, another Dasher came in and spoke to the very sweet young hostess, although I wasn't paying attention and I didn't hear what he said. A few minutes later, the manager, very much a lady of the kind who seems to cut from a certain abrasive cloth, especially associated with a particular woman's name, which is on brand for the area of the city I live in, by the way, comes out with my order and asks who it is. I raise my hand and I say, that's me, thank you, and then she gives it to me. As she's doing this, she points to the other Dashers and says, I need to talk to you. And when she said this, my ears perked up. Do they know each other? As I'm taking my receipt picture required by the application, she points a finger in his face and totally lays into him. I don't remember word for word what she said, but it was something like, don't you speak that way to my staff ever again. These are teenagers and you are a grown man. You do not need to be talking to them like that. I will not have you treating them that way. It's been twice now and you're getting banned after this. And guys, she sounded every bit of a mother who has had it up to here with her naughty kid, and the mom voice was in full force. He then meekly mumbles, yes ma'am, and then suddenly has a very interesting phone call to make while he waits for his order. Well, it honestly took me all that I had not to clap and cheer. I love seeing restaurant managers stand up for their staff. And like I said, I have no idea what he said to those nice young ladies, but it must have been really crappy. Most likely some run-of-the-mill rude Dasher stuff, but I really hope it wasn't anything more sinister. And trust me, it would have really sucked to get banned from this restaurant, all because they have a great staff and orders pay very well. But if anything, it was probably deserved, because from the sounds of it, that guy sounded like an absolute jerk. Okay, I love it when managers stand up for their staff. In my opinion, the saying, oh, the customer's always right, it's like, no, they're never right. Customers don't know what they want, and if anything, they will be rude as a default. So the fact that this manager was not putting up with that crap for a second, in my opinion, is great. That's the mark of someone who should be in management, because if you have a manager that has your back, it quite literally makes your entire life so much easier. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My cousin has absolutely lost her mind. as she demands to know all of the information about the graduate programs I got accepted into, refusing to take no for an answer no matter what I say. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently got accepted into 2 graduate programs. I wanted to share the news with my cousin who helped me with the application, but I wanted to wait until I made a final decision. But apparently, she decided that my personal life was actually her business. From the start, I made one simple request. I would share my news when I was ready. I told her this directly. I even explained why, because in my experience, announcing things too soon sometimes backfires. Call it superstition, whatever, but I was clear. Well, she did not care. For weeks, she kept pushing, constantly asking if I had news, hinting that I must be hiding something. Eventually, I caved and I told her about one of them, since I wasn't ready to discuss the other one yet. But she did not believe it. Suddenly, she was playing detective, going behind my back to my sister, demanding to know what I was hiding. But after my sister shut her down, this set her off. I woke up the next morning to a series of very long text messages. Essentially, she was accusing me of hiding my acceptances. She accused me of being secretive, shady, and disrespectful for not sharing everything immediately. She said that because she helped me, she was somehow owed the news the second I got it. She also called my delay a slap in the face and a personal insult, claiming that I think she's jealous of me. Then, out of nowhere, she started listing all of her degrees and career accomplishments just to prove that she wasn't jealous. She said stuff like, I have multiple degrees and an awesome career, so obviously your tiny little grad school acceptance means nothing to me. And it's like, excuse me, who said anything about jealousy? She literally invented that argument herself. At this point, I was just staring at my phone, trying to figure out how we got from I just wanted to wait to a full-blown psychodrama. And now, somehow, I feel guilty. Maybe I should have just told her earlier. Maybe I could have avoided all of this. But seriously, if she had just respected my very normal boundary, she would have gotten the full story anyways. So was I wrong for not sharing my news with her sooner, all because she helped me out? Because right now I'm honestly incredibly frustrated. No, this is so weird. Who in their right mind would walk up to you and be like, give me all of your information right now. I demand to know right now. By the way, I'm not jealous. I have a better job than you. It's like, whoa, wait a second. Let's take a few steps back. It is completely idiotic for her to pretend like you have any obligation to give her any information. She did not get you that graduate program. They looked at your credentials and not her. From the sounds of it, all she did was help you with the application. Like, that is literally it. She didn't do any other hard work to get you there. She just helped you apply and then tries to act like, oh man, you have to tell me everything. And also, when it comes to her being like, well, I'm not jealous, you are. Like, obviously she's projecting, and yes, she absolutely is jealous. She's pissed off because you got accepted into 2 different graduate programs where she probably never got into any. So yeah, you should not feel guilty at all. This lady's an idiot. And in my opinion, I really do think she sounds crazy because her behavior is definitely not normal. My wife cheated on me earlier in the relationship, and now she is literally flaunting it in my face. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, my wife cheated on me at the beginning of our relationship, which by the way was 5 years ago. I forgave her, but asked if she could remove him from her social group out of respect, and she fought it, but eventually agreed. But back in last December, she added him again. All she said was, I'm sorry this makes you feel bad. And then she went right back to her hometown for a couple of days and went completely AWOL, spent some nights out of my in-laws' house, and gave me some elaborate excuses. But I didn't buy it, so I confronted her. And it was there that she ended the relationship over text messaging. She came back home after a couple of days and said that she was going to move out. It took her 2 months to actually do it, and I ended up helping her move out and then moved out myself, since I didn't want to be in our old apartment alone. Now, we haven't filed for divorce yet, but we have been living separately for 3 weeks. Well, today she posted on social media a picture showing that she's traveling abroad with the guy she cheated on me with, and clearly she wanted me to see it. I feel like it's totally disrespectful. Needless to say, I gave her the stars and the moon for over 5 years of marriage, so I can't understand this move of hers. So please, I really could use some help or some perspective here. My current reaction is to have no reaction at all, and I'm honestly wondering if this is okay because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I really don't know why you haven't blocked her yet, because this is crazy behavior. Your wife of 5 years clearly was never faithful, and she is showing you exactly the kind of person that she really is. And that's not fair for you. You don't deserve that. You literally have done everything you can to make your marriage work, only for her to turn around and just tarnish all of it overnight. Like, that really sucks. I don't care who you are. So seriously, block her and move on with your life, because she clearly had no interest in keeping that marriage going in the first place. Am I the jerk for not letting my dad's girlfriend walk through my room, even though my room has the front door to the house in it, and she always wants to go out the front whenever she's upset? Because right now I feel guilty and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old male and I live with my dad, his girlfriend, and my youngest brother for the past 3 or 4 years. We recently moved into a new house around August of 2019 2023, and my new room is like a mud room, even though we only use it as a bedroom for me, but it has the front door, which is fine because my family only uses the back door really, and I can just grab whatever food or packages are delivered and distribute them accordingly. Anyways, my dad's girlfriend, let's call her Stacy, as well as my dad always get into arguments when he's drunk. We have a small house, so she has nowhere to go but outside when they argue or their closet. Well, sometimes my dad is on the back porch drinking with my uncles, and even though they will ignore her, when she walks through them to go around the house to sit on the front steps, she would rather go through the front door. Well, since the front door is in my room, Stacy needs to ask me, since you know, this is a privacy thing, and because I would have to move a bunch of things and leave the door and screen door unlocked and open for her, even though she always does ask. Now, I normally let her do it, but a few months ago when this incident happens, she asked me and I just said no, because I just didn't want to have to move all of my stuff, and I was stressed out, and I wanted to have personal conversations with my friends without worrying that she's snooping around. And for reference, she loves to eavesdrop, and had stolen my sister's girlfriend's things when my sister and her girlfriend live with us. Also, I have anxiety of leaving the front door unlocked and open, which only increased with my stress state. Anyways, when I said no, she cursed me out and said I was being inconsiderate before storming out of my room and almost slamming the door. My friend said that I wasn't a jerk and that it was my room, so I had the right to say no, and it's just my people-pleasing personality making me feel guilty. And yet Stacy didn't talk to me for almost a month afterwards, and our relationship is still strained. So at this point, I'm internally torn and I honestly don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. First off, I think you drew the short stick when it came to picking rooms in this house. Like, I don't know about you, but I would hate having the front door as my bedroom. Like, that sucks and I really would not like that. But also, you have every right to tell Stacy that no, she can't just walk through your room. Because guess what? It's your room. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like she's a private person at all. So yes, I think you were completely in the right for telling her to go somewhere else, because that sounds like a very annoying thing to deal with. An entitled old jerk decides to treat me like crap at my job and out in public. So I decided to get some stupid petty revenge by getting back at her in such a way that truly matches the petty nature of her original problems. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in customer service for a small town local utility. Back then, if you hadn't paid in full by the due date, you would get a late charge the next day with no grace period. We would, however, waive it one time every 12 months, but only if you would ask us. Most people were understanding, albeit upset, but every so often you'd get the people who couldn't believe the audacity. Now, this little old lady who we will call Valerie came in to complain about her late charge. At first, she was trying to be passive-aggressive about it, saying things like, "I can't believe you give me a late charge for paying 1 day late. I mailed it on time. Must have been lost in the mail. It's fine. I guess I'll pay though." So then the guilt stage slowly comes along. "I've never been late. I know I sent it on time. Is there anything you can do?" I then checked and we couldn't waive the charge because she already had one waived in the last 12 months. And with that brought on the entitlement stage. "I've lived here for so many years. I've never been late. You can do this for me one time. I've never had any problems with paying. Don't you know who I am?" But sorry, lady, we make an exception for you, then we have to make them for all the other customers. Eventually, she pays and then she leaves. Well, fast forward and I'm in line to check out at Trader Joe's. This was pre-COVID, but even back then, I liked personal space and not being right up on the people in line. So the person before me moves up to start getting rung up, and I stay exactly where I was. A few seconds later, I hear, "You know you can move up, don't you?" And when I turn around, I see that it's Valerie. And it's like she's giving me so much snark for 1 foot of forward progress. A few years later, I was at the funeral of my great aunt, and the church isn't that big at all, but I also have a pretty big family, and adding the fact that she'd been pretty prominent in town for several decades, the turnout was quite large, and there were several overflow seats outside the main hall. I was seated outside with some elderly relatives, and when it came time to give the incense offering, there were several lines of people converging into a single file line. As I was guiding my relatives towards the line, I saw Valerie, and it was here that I decided to get some petty revenge. I happened to make it into the line right before her, and then I stepped in front of her and decided to let my aunt, my uncle, maybe my sister, and maybe a couple other family members also step in line ahead of me, and I made her wait behind us. And sure, it's stupid petty revenge, but considering the way she's talked to me before, I feel I responded in exactly the stupid ways that she's responded to me. Yeah, I like this story because it sounds like Valerie absolutely deserves this kind of treatment. I mean, I'm all about trying to get the best deal possible and like having some kind of complaint towards customer service, but it seems like instead of paying the fine that she knew she had, she decided to try and make you feel bad for her not paying her bill, not to mention her being a complete jerk in Trader Joe's. So yeah, I love the fact that you cut in line in front of her because that probably sent a very clear message to her, and hopefully she won't forget that anytime soon. An entitled jerk demands that I keep my cat out of the public park, even going as far as threatening to call the police on me since he is so sick of the cats in this neighborhood. Here's what happened. Okay, so there's a small park a few minutes from my house that I take my cat to for walks. Now, I always keep my cat on a leash when we're out, but this wasn't enough for a man who was there with his kid. I got freaked out when he started yelling at me, demanding I leave and keep my dirty cat inside, or he would call the cops on me. All I could do was look at him in confusion. I then blurted out by saying, "Excuse me?" Well, the guy went on a tirade about how cats are destroying the neighborhood and how stupid cat owners were letting their cats run wild, killing birds, pooping everywhere, and clawing up trash bags. For the record, my baby is an indoor cat, and he hates being outside unless we're going out for walks, but I knew exactly what this man was raging about. There are folks in our neighborhood who have outdoor cats, and I see them walking around sidewalks and streets. Part of our town can't use trash bins since trash goes in the alley, and some alleyways are really narrow, so they literally just don't fit. The trash collectors just drive through the alleyway picking up trash bags and tossing them into the garbage truck, and sometimes cats get into them overnight and tear them up, leaving lots of trash in the alleyways. I'm guessing this man was upset about his trash being clawed up, or maybe he found cat poop in his yard. I'm not really sure, but it was still such an uncalled for attack, as well as extremely entitled to demand I leave a public park because I was walking my cat. He threatened to call the police again, and I snapped back at him, daring him to call the cops. I told him they would probably give him a ticket for calling in a non-emergency and wasting police resources. This seemed to finally shut him up, and he huffed and grumbled and left with his kid. But I'm honestly still astonished by this guy's attitude. Yeah, this guy's an idiot. He literally was contradicting himself from the start. He was literally complaining about outdoor cats, and yet here you have an indoor cat on a leash. This cat isn't running around all over the place. This cat is literally chained up and you're walking it responsibly. It's like, dude, you're literally pushing your blame on the wrong person. So good for you for standing up for yourself and at least telling this guy he's an idiot for even daring to call the police. Because in my opinion, I think he was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for cutting off my sister after we had a massive fight over my dad's will? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad won about $60,000 gambling 3 months ago. Not life-changing millions, but a nice chunk of change for retirement. And after this, he updated his will. My sister found out he's leaving his house to me and the cash to her, which is roughly equivalent value, and she flipped out, saying that she should get half the house too because she has kids and needs stability, even though she owns her own place already. When I pointed out that dad specifically set it up this way because I've been helping with his care for years, while she visits like twice a year, she accused me of manipulating him. Then she called dad screaming about how I have poisoned him against her. And you know what? My dad is devastated. He thought this was fair. I get the family home that I already helped maintain, and she gets liquid assets. Now he's stressed about causing problems and is considering changing it to make her happy. But I told her that she's being greedy and that this isn't even relevant yet since dad is still alive and healthy. She's now telling the whole family that I'm trying to steal her inheritance. So you know what? Yesterday I blocked her number. My mom, who's divorced from my dad, thinks that I'm overreacting and that I should just talk it out. But I'm so disgusted that I can't even look at my sister right now. So am I overreacting by cutting contact with her? Am I missing something here? Because honestly, I'm not sure what to do. Oh man, your sister's being super entitled. And the fact that she's trying to scream from the rooftops that you somehow poison him against her, like that is honestly so weird. And it really makes me think that she's showing her hand. Like she wants this to be a problem because she wants all of it when he passes away, even though he's not even dead yet. Like this guy literally is still alive and kicking. And your sister's going around and being like, wow, I can't believe this. So no, I don't think you're overreacting. And honestly, I would probably cut her off as well, because the way she's treating you seriously is not fair, and you don't deserve it in the slightest. My girlfriend cheated on me with 5 different guys, but now she claims that she is pregnant with my child. And even though I feel that I should reject her and push her away, this woman was still the love of my life for 3 years. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Me and my girlfriend had been together for 3 years. We met in college, and those 3 years had been some of the best years of my life. She was my first girlfriend, and in my eyes, she was the girl of my dreams. She was funny, confident, and incredibly beautiful. Our relationship was a healthy one, I thought, because we would go on dates together, and we wouldn't argue as much, almost never, and that made me think that we were happy together and we had no problem. Well, that is until the day of our 3rd anniversary together. I had planned to do an incredibly romantic dinner for her. Very cheesy stuff like rose petal candles and a romantic dinner in my apartment, and I had bought her some very expensive earrings, which I worked double shifts at my job to get for her. When she came to the apartment, she looked beautiful. She was wearing a very beautiful dress and I was in awe. But then I saw a little bruise on her neck, and at first I was concerned about what happened to her until I realized that it was a hickey. I then confronted her about it, and she told me I was just being a jealous, insecure child, which seriously deeply hurt me. So to make myself feel better, I asked her her if she could let me see her phone, and that made her go absolutely crazy with insults. So many insults that I don't even want to mention them. It made me so suspicious, so I decided to take her phone sneakily while she was eating, and I went and locked myself in the bathroom and I checked her phone. Well, what I saw was horrible. She had all kinds of sketchy videos with different guys, and all these really spicy text messages and all this other stuff. We were in a 3-year relationship, and this is what she did to me. I was so broken, and I confronted her about it, and she instantly bawled her eyes out, saying how sorry she was and how she regretted it and that they didn't mean anything to her. I was so broken that tears didn't fall from my eyes, and I was just gonna leave her until she started kissing me from how sad she was. Look, I wish I could say I pushed her away and I told her to get lost, but she was the love of my life. I felt so vulnerable that I fell through temptation, and we ended up spending quality time together that night, if you know what I mean. The next morning, I felt so ashamed that I left, and I left her a note on the pillow saying that I wanted to end things and never wanted to see her again. I felt so dirty that morning that I honestly hated myself so much. Fast forward to some time later, and I went to live in a very cheap apartment, falling into a deep depression until one day my girlfriend found me. And to say that I was shocked was an understatement, because the only person that knew I was living in that apartment was my mom, so I legitimately thought I was going insane. Apparently, she had called my mom and asked her where I was to try and fix things, because as a side note, she and my mom were good friends. And so my mom told her. My girlfriend then basically started saying how bad she felt and how much she regretted what she did, and how I was her one and true love, which was absolute BS. I wasn't gonna take any more of this until she gave me the biggest news out of everything. She said she was pregnant and that it was my child. Now, I didn't believe her because she was a lying jerk, of course, but she clearly told me that all the guys she has been with behind my back all wore protection and that she was on birth control. But that night that we spent time together, I didn't use protection, so it pretty much confirms that it's my baby. Now, she said that she wants the baby and she wants to raise it with me. She also says that she wants to change and start couples therapy so that we can heal and be better, so that our baby could have a good family. And honestly, I really think that she means it. And right now, I don't know what to do. I love her and I know I shouldn't, but she was my world for 3 years. But at the same time, I keep remembering how she was with all of these men, all while we were together, and it just honestly destroys me. I hate her, but I love her at the same time. And I don't want our baby to be raised in a separated family. What should I do? Okay, there is no way the original poster is believing this lady, right? She slept around with a bunch of other guys and is now only going back to the original poster because she knows for a fact the rest of them are saying, no, I'm not taking care of this kid. Or they challenged her on being like, wait, is it really my baby? Because guess what? A DNA test will absolutely prove whether it is or isn't. So in my opinion, I would not take any of this seriously. I would demand a DNA test of some kind and happily pay for that because this lady is a lying jerk. She literally went behind your back in a way that I believe is completely unacceptable. And I seriously think it would be a mistake to welcome her back in any kind of way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.